Chapter 1302. Before the explosion, all the matter and energy in the universe gathered together and condensed into a very small volume. The temperature was extremely high, and the density was extremely high. It was called a singularity. In an instant, an enormous pressure was produced, followed by a big explosion. The reaction principle of this big explosion is called quantum physics by physicists. The big explosion caused matter to scatter in all directions, causing the universe's space to constantly expand and the temperature to correspondingly drop. Later, all the galaxies, stars, planets, and even life that appeared in the universe were gradually formed through this process of constant expansion and cooling. Yi Qinghan thought of the scientists on Earth from his previous life. Their deductions about the origin of the universe were surprisingly similar to the origin of Frost Boundary. The difference was that his soul space had experienced two explosions, and it had yet to take shape. He wasn't sure if Frost Boundary would eventually evolve into another Plate Boundary, nor did he know if Plate Boundary was the universe that people on Earth spoke of. But that didn't stop him from comprehending the true meaning of space. The power of space, spatial lock, spatial tremor, spatial stillness, and spatial ripple. These five fundamental laws explain the principles of space's composition. Yi Qinghan had originally been thinking about the five fundamental mysteries, searching for the true meaning of the fundamental laws of space. But he discovered that he was wrong. He hadn't discovered anything in 1,000 years. Now that he had entered Frost Boundary and comprehended the true meaning of space, the origin of Frost Boundary and its repeated evolutions actually appeared in his mind. This allowed him to easily understand the true meaning of space, which was expansion. Only a space that constantly expanded and evolved could be a living space. Only then could it be perfected and finally form a stable space. I've comprehended the profound mysteries of space combination for so many years, but I still haven't grasped it. I even refined the primal chaos divine crystal and the great explosion in my soul space. After Frost Boundary formed, I easily fused them together, and at such a fast speed. But now that I've entered Frost Boundary, I've immediately comprehended the true meaning of space. Such a freakish speed of comprehension. Could all these strange things be related to Frost Boundary? Yi Qinghan thought to himself. Ignoring the fact that he had already refined the primal chaos divine crystal, just this freakish speed of comprehension was enough. Most importantly, when comprehending the profound mysteries of space combination, he hadn't encountered any bottlenecks. This was simply impossible. Therefore, Yi Qinghan guessed that these strange things had something to do with the cold boundary. After all, these strange things happened after the big explosion in the soul space. However, these were all Yi Qinghan's guesses. As for the actual situation, no one knew. Perhaps the old man would know something. However, if Yi Qinghan had to choose, he would rather not see the old man. Thus, he tossed these questions aside and began to fully focus on comprehending the ultimate mysteries. In the end, in just 3 months, Yi Qinghan's body shook again, and he opened his eyes in horror. An ultimate profound mystery had actually succeeded in fusing it. And then, something even more terrifying happened. Yi Qinghan continued to fuse with the ultimate profound mystery for another 50 years, reaching the small success stage. Yi Qinghan discovered that fusing the ultimate profound mysteries was the same as fusing the spatial combination profound mysteries. There was no bottleneck at all. It was like a straight road. As long as the horse galloped forward, it would be able to reach its destination. However, what happened next caused Yi Qinghan to be even more confused. Yi Qinghan continued to fuse with the ultimate profound mysteries of space. Afterwards, it was still smooth sailing. But after 80 years, when he had fused more than half of the ultimate profound mystery and was about to reach the large success stage, he was stuck at the final step. At the start, Yi Qinghan thought that he had taken a wrong turn and encountered a small bottleneck. This was very normal. Apart from a spatial combination, profound mysteries, the other high-level profound mysteries would often encounter bottlenecks and take a wrong turn. As long as one carefully comprehended and verified, it would be very easy to unravel the bottleneck and continue to fuse with it until the large success stage. But in the following 3,000 years, when Yi Qing Han had entered seclusion, the 5,000 years he had set had already passed. Yi Qing Han was still stuck at this point, unable to fuse with any of the profound mysteries. More importantly, no matter how he repeatedly verified it, he discovered that the direction of his fusion was correct, but he just couldn't continue. It was as if there was no path forward on this straight road. What's the problem? I've been stuck in the same place for nearly 4,000 years? This doesn't make sense, and it doesn't make sense. Yi Qing Han stopped his cultivation and flashed out of the Frost Realm, appearing in the War Emperor Palace. He rubbed his head, feeling extremely confused. The ultimate profound mystery had only been 80 years, but he had already fused more than half of it. But just as he was about to reach the large success stage, he had been stuck for a whole 4,000 years. Forget it, the time I promised with Ancestor Zhu Yi and the others is up. I'd better go out and settle the matter with the Water God tribe first. Yi Qing Han ran his fingers through his hair and tidied up his robes. He used his divine sense to look at the Frost Realm. After several thousand years, the Frost Realm had changed greatly. It was at least the size of 2 immortal realms now. The largest plane was several hundred miles in circumference. The power of cold had only been accumulated for 5,000 years, and it had already reached a circumference of several dozen miles. It was enough for Yi Qing Han to attack with all his might several hundred times. Yi Qing Han flashed out of the War Emperor Palace with some regret. He appeared on the balcony of Flame Dragon City. Swish! The moment Yi Qing Han appeared, it immediately alarmed countless people. Space fluctuated, and countless people teleported over. Qingcheng, you actually suddenly became a venerable? Yi Qing Han smiled as he looked at the familiar faces. When he looked at Yu Qingcheng, he was surprised and overjoyed. Then, when he looked at Fireworks, Yao Rao, and the others, he was overjoyed. He laughed and said, "Good. Fireworks also broke through to the God Emperor realm. Yao Rao's strength should be at the 6th grade War God level now, right? Not bad. Not bad at all. Qing'an, what about us? Yao Yao's aptitude is abnormal. She and Xiaohei have gone out to train. When they come back, they will definitely give you a big surprise." Fireworks covered her mouth and giggled. Yi Qing Han scanned the area with his divine sense, and easily found Blackie and the demon devourer demon in the north of the heavenly awakening continent. What he found shocked him. In 5,000 years, this girl's strength had actually reached the level of a 7th grade war god. Boss, Yao Yao, your uncle has come out of seclusion. Let's go back. Yi Qing Han used his divine sense to scan, and Xiao Hei found out. The demon devourer's beautiful face revealed a happy smile, and she immediately flew toward the transportation array in the distance. Xiao Hei could have flown back in a moment, but she was worried about the demon devourer, so she entered the slaughter god blade on her back and returned with them. Yi Qing'an smiled and chatted with everyone for a while. Lei Zhenju, the beast god, the ice queen, and the others also arrived. Yi Qing'an immediately told them about the strange things he had encountered during his cultivation. Of course, he did not explain to them about the cold domain. The group of 9th grade experts blinked their eyes and looked at each other. They shook their heads, indicating that they had not encountered such strange things. The most difficult part of the cultivation of nomological laws was getting started. After getting started, it would be much easier. As long as one continued to verify and deduce, one would eventually achieve great success. They would definitely not be like Yi Qing Han, who had been stuck for 4,000 years. Yi Qing Han did not care anymore and asked about the Water God Mystery Realm. Once he did, the killing intent in Zhu Yi's eyes soared. She said coldly, "According to the plan we discussed, we sent out another group of envoys 1,000 years ago to persuade those stubborn old fools to come out and fight for the realm of gods and participate in the dimensional war. In the end, a venerable and 10 7th grade war gods entered. They were all killed without even a chance to send a message." Yi Qinghan's face darkened, and he said angrily, "What? Refusing a toast only to drink a forfeit? Prepare to go to the Water God Mystery Realm in a month. If they are not willing to submit, then capture them all and make them soul slaves. If they do not want to be soul slaves, then there is no point in keeping them. Kill them all. Chapter 1303. Although the restriction genius Lei Hua, who was second only to Yao Ji, had already broken all the restrictions at the entrance of the water mystic realm, Yi Qinghan still decided to go through the endless void. However, Yi Qinghan still decided to travel through the endless void. After all, they had the Beast God Hall and the Soul Emperor Pavilion. Traveling through the endless void was like walking on flat ground. Attacking and defending was incomparably easy. This time, Yi Qinghan only brought the Beast God, Zhu Yi, Ice Queen, and Yi Feihu to guard the divine world. The Beast God controlled the Beast God Palace, and Zhu Yi came up with many plans. Although Yi Qinghan had the confidence to win, he brought 2 more people. If they encountered any special situations, they would be able to take care of each other. Boss, if those stubborn old fools are not willing to submit, then let me devour all of them. I feel that the further I go, the more energy I need to devour. After this evolution, I devoured that evil demon supreme, but there was no reaction at all. I estimate that the next evolution will require me to devour 5 9th grade supremes and above. In the Beast God Palace, Xiaohei chuckled and transmitted his voice to Yi Qinghan. Xiaohei's character was originally very violent. To him, since the water god race was a threat to his family, he would rather kill them all than subdue them. Anyway, he needed a lot of energy. There's no rush. Let's see the situation first. Yi Qinghan shook his head and looked at Xiaohei dotingly. There are still 5,000 years before the dimensional war. Are you afraid that there won't be people for you to devour? At that time, Boss will accompany you into the Demon Mountain. If God or Buddha obstructs, we will kill Buddha. I will let you devour to your heart's content. Demon Mountain? Boss. I will listen to you. Xiaohei's eyes lit up. Previously, in the Demon Mountain, Yi Qinghan encountered countless experts from the other planes. However, because he was not strong enough, he did not dare to fight and could only run away. This time, after entering the Demon Mountain, with their strength, they would definitely be able to sweep everyone. Old Ancestor, wait outside. Xiaohei will enter the Slaughter God Blade, and Zhu Yi will bring me into the water mystic realm. 3 months later, the Beast God Shrine arrived at a medium-sized plane. Yi Qinghan called Xiaohei into the Slaughter God Blade and sheathed it on his back. Zhu Yi held on to Yi Qinghan's arm as they walked out of the Beast God Shrine. The beast deity was not worried that the 2 of them would be in danger. Yi Qinghan's power of cold was enough to sweep through the water mystery territory. Coupled with the abnormal Xiaohei, the people in the water mystery territory were definitely not enough for the 2 of them to kill. The beast god was slightly worried, and he instructed, Little Han, try not to kill them if you can. Leave some seeds for the immortal realm. Yi Qinghan nodded. Zhu Yi brought him into the water god arcane realm through the weak point of the dimension. The water mystery territory was about the same size as the fire god arcane realm. Yi Qinghan scanned it with his divine sense and was slightly surprised. At first glance, the water mystery territory looked like the entire mystery territory was filled with islands. Moreover, they were all very small islands. There was not a single continent. However, upon closer inspection, he realized that these islands were actually man-made. There were originally 7 or 8 continents inside, but someone dug up rivers and brought in seawater, dividing them into countless islands. Before Yi Qinghan had time to carefully inspect, countless figures flew up from the countless islands. They were densely packed, and like locusts, they flew toward him. Countless powerful auras and divine senses instantly locked onto the 2 of them. The space opposite them fluctuated continuously, and over 39th grade elites quietly appeared. They looked at Zhu Yi with unfriendly eyes, and finally locked onto the gentle smile on Yi Qinghan's face. Oh my, good guy! Yi Qinghan's expression did not change, but he was shocked on the inside. It seemed that the water mystery territory did not suffer much damage in those years. Not to mention the number of 9th grade war gods. It was more than the number of the entire divine realm. Among the densely packed experts flying up, There were actually nearly 1,000 venerables, and at least tens of thousands of 7th-grade war gods. It seems that it's better not to fight if possible. With so many experts, if I return to the divine realm, they will be a great help. I have the ghost transformation, and if I pass it on to the experts who will participate in the dimensional war in the future, the divine realm will have a much higher chance of winning. Yi Qinghan secretly made up his mind, transmitted a message to Zhu Yi beside him, and then stood there quietly. In the distance, countless 7th-grade war gods and venerables had already flown behind the group of 9th-grade war gods, and were staring at the two outsiders like tigers watching their prey. Yi Qinghan's gaze locked onto a purple-haired man in a blue robe in the middle of the crowd. The man looked like a middle-aged man with average looks, the kind that would not attract a second glance in a crowd. However, there was an air of arrogance in his eyes, and his body naturally emitted a dignified aura that came from being in a high position all year round. All the 9th-grade experts released their aura, and the power of space secretly condensed. Only the purple-haired middle-aged man did not reveal a trace of his aura. However, Yi Qinghan could tell at a glance that this was the most powerful expert of the Water God clan, Emperor Gong Tian. Yi Qinghan also saw that Gong Tian and the other two, who had been severely injured by him twice, were now glaring at the two of them with venomous gazes. From time to time, they would look at Gong Tian and were obviously transmitting messages. "You're Yi Qinghan?" Gong Tian was the first to break the silence. He raised his brows slightly and asked in a deep voice, his tone somewhat unfriendly. Yi Qinghan smiled gently and did not get angry. He said indifferently, "That's me. You are clan leader Gong Tian?" Gong Tian's expression turned slightly cold. He nodded proudly and continued in a deep voice, "Yi Qinghan, why have you barged into my water god realm so rashly today? Retreat at once. I will not pursue this matter. Or else." Mother Kerr. Yi Qinghan cursed inwardly. He turned to see that Zhu Yi's pretty face had already darkened, and her killing intent had skyrocketed. The Water God clan was indeed all the same, with their noses pointed at the sky and their arrogance soaring. If it were not for the fact that he had the intention to take them in, he would not have bothered to talk and would have attacked directly. Secretly suppressing the anger in his heart, Yi Qinghan patted Zhu Yi's hand and smiled faintly again. 5,000 years ago, the divinity realm sent down a divine decree. I believe you all know about this. The divinity realm cannot afford to lose the interdimensional war. Therefore, I came here this time to sincerely ask clan leader Gong Tian to join us in the interdimensional war. This time, both my old ancestor and Queen Zhu Yi will be participating. I have an ancient secret skill that can change the attribute of divine power and soul. The divine emperors and supremes will definitely not be able to discover your identities. Zhu Yi can be a witness. Clan leader Gong Tian, what do you think? Zhu Yi nodded but did not say anything. Her body slowly transformed, and in the end, she turned into a man, and the attribute of her divine power turned into the attribute of water. At first glance, one would think that she was an expert of the Water God clan. Clan leader Gong Tian, when the nest is overturned, how can there be an intact egg? Zhu Yi changed her appearance again and said coldly. Then, she looked at Gong Tian together with Yi Qinghan, waiting for his decision. The experts of the Water God clan did not dare to speak, and they all looked at Gong Tian silently. Gong Tian did not think for long. He waved his hand and said with great determination, "There is no need to say anything more about this. Please leave." The reason? Yi Qinghan and Zhu Yi looked at each other in astonishment. He had the ghost transformation, and the Beast God clan and the Fire God clan were participating in the interdimensional war. Why was Gong Tian so resolute in rejecting them? Gong Tian's face was filled with rage, and his aura surged. His killing intent filled the air as he shouted, "There is no reason. Are you going to scram or not? F***CK, my boss is giving you face, but you bastard is still trying to take it?" Yi Qinghan's expression finally changed, and Zhu Yi was also infuriated. However, before the two of them could say anything, An enraged voice came from behind Yi Qinghan. Following that, Xiao Hei's image floated out of the slaughter god blade, and he said angrily, "Boss, I cannot tolerate this any longer. Let me, Lord Xiao Hei, go and devour all these pieces of trash." Chapter 1304. As soon as Xiao Hei said that, it was the Water God clan's turn to be shocked. Before the destruction of the Water God clan, that generation's Water God clan leader already had a bad premonition. He transferred half of the clan's elites and powerhouses into the Water God mystic realm in advance. That was why there were so many powerhouses now. The Water God clan's strength was second only to the Fire God clan. They were naturally arrogant. Now, there were no tigers in the divine world. A bunch of monkeys were calling themselves the kings. If not for the ancestral teachings, the Water God clan would have gone out and slaughtered everyone to dominate the divine world. The last time Gong Tian went out, Gong Tian wanted to test Yi Qinghan's strength and inform him that the Water God clan did not want to participate in the divine world's disputes. Unexpectedly, Yi Qinghan severely injured Gong Tian and the other two and threw them into the Water God mystic realm. If not for Gong Tian's suppression, the powerhouses in the Water God mystic realm would have killed their way out long ago. Now, Yi Qinghan had come to their doorstep. How could his strange subordinate be so impudent? How dare he speak so arrogantly? How dare you? Impudent! You are seeking death. In an instant, countless shouts rang out. Everyone glared angrily at Xiao Hei. Space power condensed, and the atmosphere was oppressive. Countless supremacies quietly formed a fan shape and prepared to attack. Swoosh! A peak rank 9 powerhouse rushed out angrily. Space power condensed, and he shouted at Xiao Hei, "Damn thing, come and die." Seeing that Gong Tian did not say anything, Yi Qinghan knew that he had tacitly agreed. He sighed slightly. It seemed that if he did not teach them a lesson, they would not know pain. Immediately, Yi Qinghan's expression turned cold. He sent a voice transmission. "Xiao Hei, I'll leave this to you. Devour him." Wah! Xiao Hei beamed with joy. He immediately transformed into a 10,000-meter-long blue dragon and rushed toward the peak rank 9 powerhouse. What the hell is this? The peak rank 9 green-robed martial artist was a little scared. When he saw Xiao Hei come out of the slaughter god saber, he thought that it was a mutated artifact spirit. How could it transform? After the transformation, his aura was still so powerful. He immediately condensed the power of space and turned it into a pillar of water that was thousands of meters tall. It spun like a whirlpool, twisting left and right in an extremely strange manner. In an instant, the blue dragon that Xiao Hei had transformed into was sucked in. The blue dragon that Xiao Hei had transformed into was originally dark green in color. However, at this moment, it suddenly became transparent and directly penetrated the vortex of the water column. The whirlpool of water penetrated through, not harming Xiao Hei in the slightest. The blue dragon that Xiao Hei had transformed into immediately coiled around the top 9th level powerhouse. The expressions of the water god race, cultivators, changed. Unexpectedly, this monster could easily pierce through the power of space. When it clashed with the cultivators on their side, there were no collisions or explosions like they expected. Most importantly, he actually began to corrode the martial artist's origin energy, and the speed was extremely fast. What was origin energy? It was the toughest thing apart from the power of chaos. It was indestructible and could be used for defense. Even a supreme divine weapon could not pierce through it. They did not expect that it would be so easily corroded by this monster. What kind of monster is this? Great Emperor, save me. Outsiders could only see that Xiao Hei was constantly corroding the martial artist's origin energy. However, the 9th level powerhouse knew very well that Xiao Hei was actually quietly corroding his body. All of his internal organs had been completely corroded. He was in so much pain that he rolled in the air. He wanted to teleport to escape, but he found that he couldn't circulate any of his divine power. A green current of air quietly entered the vicinity of his divine crystal and surrounded it. It was corroding the source energy outside his divine crystal. Gong Tian was furious. He released all of his aura. The vast power of space pressed down as if the sky was about to collapse. Zhu Yi was so suppressed that he did not dare to breathe. A blood-red spear appeared in his hand. He pointed it at Yi Qinghan and said angrily, "Yi Qinghan, tell your freak underling to stop. If you dare to kill Gong Tian, this great emperor will not let any of you leave today." Yi Qinghan was also angry. He had come in to talk to Gong Tian politely, but this Gong Tian really thought that he was afraid of him. His face turned cold, and his gaze was like a knife. He said fearlessly, You want to keep us here? Do you believe that Xiaohe alone is enough to exterminate the entire Water God clan? Come on up. Show me what you've got. Xiaohe, smash everyone down." After saying that, Yi Qinghan circulated the power of cold and flew up into the sky. However, he secretly transmitted his voice to Xiaohe. "Don't devour wantonly. These people are left for the planar wars in the future." Gong Tian immediately shot up. He was still in midair. The blood-red spear turned into several afterimages as it stabbed forward tens of thousands of times. Tens of thousands of cracks appeared in the space. It was a terrifying sight. Under the control of his spear shadows, the power of space from all directions condensed into millions of water arrows that pierced towards Yi Qinghan. The scene was exceptionally beautiful. You do have some talent. However, your strength is far inferior to Shinta Xiong's. Yi Qinghan snorted coldly. His eyes flickered with a strange light. The Soul Exterminator quietly activated. His body split into two into four, and finally into hundreds of clones. 10 God Slayer's spears condensed. At the same time, the Fire God battle armor appeared, directly ignoring Gong Tian's attack. Thousands of God Slayer's spears pierced towards Gong Tian with a destructive aura. Cloning technique? Paragon's spiritual treasure, Fire God battle armor? His attack power is actually so strong? When Gong Tian saw Yi Qinghan's clones, he was slightly startled. Then, when he saw the Fire God battle armor, his face darkened. With the Fire God battle armor, his space power attacks were basically useless against him. In addition, the aura coming from the silver spear was even more terrifying than his own attack. Gong Tian had a bad feeling. Below, Xiaohe had originally wanted to devour the superior 9th grade martial artist. However, Yi Qinghan had already given the order. He could only shake his aura and smash the superior 9th grade martial artist, Gong Tian, who was scared out of his wits. Then, the huge blue dragon shook and turned into an overwhelming gust of wind that engulfed the more than 39th grade martial artists and countless 7th grade venerable martial artists. Ah! The martial artists on the other side immediately released all kinds of attacks. However, these attacks seemed to have hit the air. Xiaohe's body turned transparent and avoided the attacks. Then, with a shake of the green light, everyone was enveloped. The 9th grade martial artists and venerables were fine, but the 7th grade war gods who could not escape in time immediately suffered. In an instant, dozens of them were devoured by Xiaohe. For a moment, innumerable screams pierced the sky. Countless low-level martial artists below were so scared that their legs were trembling. The scream frightened Gong Tian as well. He subconsciously split his attention and scanned the area below with his divine sense. He found that all of his subordinates had been engulfed by Xiaohe. Countless people were tumbling in the air. It looked like they were all going to be devoured by Xiaohe. He was so scared that his soul almost left his body. What kind of monster is this? How can it be so terrifying? Yi Qinghan said that this monster can destroy the water mystery land by himself. Gong Tian's heart trembled. While he was distracted, Yi Qinghan's soul-destroying attack came. The golden soul threads in his mind began to crazily pierce into his sea of soul. Although he was protected by the chaotic energy, he still had to control it. The golden soul threads were everywhere. However, while he was distracted, several golden soul threads immediately pierced into his sea of soul. In the distance, thousands of God Slayer spears were already whistling toward him with an aura that could destroy heaven and earth. Chapter 1305. This Yi Qinghan has only cultivated for 10,000 years. How is it possible for him to be so powerful and have such a monstrous soul attack? And he is so lucky to have gathered the complete fire god armor? And that damn thing, how can it have such a monstrous devouring ability? Could it be that the fire god clan is really going to perish? Gong Tion's face was as pale as snow. He no longer had the arrogance from before. Ever since he was born and became the clan leader of the Water God clan, this was the first time he felt the aura of death. He, who had never tasted failure before, emitted a tyrannical aura. The blood-colored spear in his hand flashed with a red light and left his hand. It turned into a red bolt of lightning and shot towards one of the hundreds of Yi Ching Han in the sky. Gong Tion's eyes were filled with hostility as he stared at Yi Ching Han and shouted, "Come, let's see if your fire god armor can withstand the attack of the supreme spiritual treasure, the blood spear of the Water God clan." Emperor, be careful. This blood spear is extremely powerful and has the ability to amplify attacks. It can amplify the attacks layer by layer and directly attack the divine crystal. Zhu Yi, who was below, felt that something was wrong when she saw Gong Tian take out a red spear. She suddenly came to her senses and immediately sent a voice transmission to Yi Ching Han. "Isn't it just hitting a cow across a mountain?" Yi Ching Han's lips curled into a cold smile. He still did not activate the fire god's heart to teleport. Instead, he controlled the god slayer's spear and continued to attack Gong Tian. Boom! Most of the water arrows that filled the sky missed, but a few hundred of them hit Yi Ching Han's body. Yi Ching Han's body was only knocked back a few hundred meters. He was not injured at all. He continued to stand proudly in the sky and control the God Slayer spear. Gong Tian's blood spear had also confirmed Yi Ching Han's true body. It made an arc in the sky and shot towards his abdomen. Gong Tian's eyes were filled with madness. With chaotic force and origin energy protecting him, he refused to believe that Yi Ching Han could kill him in a single strike. However, as long as his spear of blood flame pierced Yi Ching Han's abdomen, even if Yi Ching Han had the fire god armor, his god crystal would shatter. If he didn't die, he would be heavily injured. "Turn!" Yi Ching Han roared, and the god slayer's spear suddenly spun, easily causing the origin energy on the surface of Gong Tian's body to spin. Then, the spear easily pierced into Gong Tian's body. The energy instantly exploded, turning half of Gong Tian's body into a bloody mess. It was a tragic sight. The other 9 spears stopped in front of Gong Tian, glaring at him like 9 venomous snakes. Xiao! The spear of blood fire finally arrived in front of Yi Ching Han, but it was clearly a little late. Yi Ching Han could have easily activated the fire god's heart and teleported away. Or, he could have just moved casually to avoid being hit. However, Yi Ching Han remained unmoving under the shocked gazes of Zhu Yi and countless others. He allowed the spear of blood fire to pierce his abdomen. "Huh? Yi Ching Han, are you still not dead yet?" Although Gong Tian was injured and the 9 spears of blood fire were still glaring at him, he completely ignored them. He controlled the spear of blood fire with his consciousness and laughed sinisterly. "Emperor, boss!" Zhu Yi paled, and Xiao Hei's worried voice rang out. Bang! The fire god armor lit up with a fiery red light, but nothing happened. Yi Ching Han was only knocked back a few hundred kilometers. Then, under countless gazes, he slowly flew back as if nothing had happened. It seemed like he wasn't injured at all. His expression didn't change at all. How is this possible? Impossible. It doesn't make sense. The spear of blood fire's attack passed through. Could his divine crystal be protected by primal chaos force? He's only cultivated for 10,000 years. How could he have primal chaos force? Gong Tian's face was filled with disbelief. He stared dumbly at the slowly approaching Yi Ching Han. Blood flowed from his body, but he didn't seem to notice. Gong Tian wasn't the only one in disbelief. Even Zhu Yi's eyes flickered incessantly. In the end, Zhu Yi suddenly remembered. She covered her mouth and laughed. She murmured, "Oh, I forgot." The Emperor comprehended the unyielding path last time and was bestowed with primal chaos force. Although the spear of blood fire's attack is domineering, It's weakened by the fire god armor and protected by primal chaos force. How could it hurt him? Emperor Hanya. Good move. Gong Tian has probably completely given up. Yi Qinghan grabbed the spear of blood fire with one hand. His long hair fluttered in the wind as he strode through the air. His expression was cold as he looked down at Gong Tian. He shouted in a deep voice, "The Water God clan, submit to me or die. If the Supreme God Emperor can exterminate your clan, then I, Yi Qinghan, can do the same." Xiaohe had obviously received Yi Qinghan's message. He stopped devouring and turned into a blue dragon, glaring covetously at the side. However, the ninth-grade experts and venerables had more or less been pierced by his aura. Their flesh and internal organs had been corroded. The experts were still trembling in fear. Gong Tian slowly recovered from his injuries. He looked at the devil-like Yi Qinghan in the sky, then at his subordinates, who were pale with fright. He knew that he had lost. He had been utterly defeated. Yi Qinghan had the chance to kill him. His attack hadn't affected him in the slightest. On top of that, there was that strange beast. Gong Tian knew that if he dared to say no, the Water God clan would be annihilated today. Gritting his teeth, Gong Tian's face darkened. He struggled to say a few words. "We submit." Hearing Gong Tian's words, the expressions of all the members of the Water God clan became even more gloomy. They all looked at Yi Qinghan silently, their eyes filled with malice and resentment. But they didn't dare to move. If Yi Qinghan was alone today, they would probably fight to the death. However, Xiaohe's ability was too abnormal. Moreover, Xiaohe didn't affect their attacks at all. This battle, how could they fight? Yi Qinghan looked at the countless resentful eyes below and shook his head slightly. This clan was so arrogant. It was strange that they could become one of the 10 ancient clans and look down on everyone. He was confused. Why didn't the other 9 clans join forces to exterminate the Water God clan? He snorted coldly. His knife-like eyes swept across the faces of the warriors below. He shouted, "Is this how you submit to me? All of you kneel?" Xiaohe roared in the air. His cold eyes chilled everyone's hearts. Seeing that no one reacted, he immediately said angrily, "Are you deaf? My boss told you to kneel. Xiaohe, am lacking a lot of energy now. If you piss me off, I'll devour all of you. You, Water God clan, you'd rather die than kneel." Gong Tian pointed at Xiaohe and shouted angrily. Everyone felt a common hatred for the enemy and was unafraid of death. Even Gong Tian, who was originally hesitant, now had a determined look in his eyes. "Xiaohe." Yi Qinghan laughed coldly and shouted. His eyes locked onto Gong Tian, and he activated Soul Exterminator. Xiaohe immediately turned into a bolt of lightning and surrounded Gong Tian. Green light shone brightly as he devoured with all his might. Gong Tian, a dignified upper-rank 9 martial artist, did not even have the time to scream before he turned into a pool of blood. The blood splattered all over the faces of the rank 7 martial artists below. The 10 fire god spears on Yi Qinghan's body once again whistled out of the void. He pointed at everyone from afar and shouted coldly, "Say it again. Will you kneel or not?" Chapter 1306. The anger in the eyes of Gong Tian and all the level 9 experts could burn the air. However, Gong Tian's supreme spiritual treasure was in their hands, and Xiaohe could easily kill a group of level 9 venerables, not to mention Zhui. If anyone dared to make a move, they would definitely end up like Gong Tian. Plop! Finally, Gong Tian knelt down heavily on one knee and lowered his noble head. He knelt in the air and made a plop sound. One could imagine how angry he was. When Gong Tian knelt down, the level 9 experts below could only grit their teeth and follow suit. Then the level 7 venerable experts also knelt down. Finally, countless low-level martial artists on the hundreds of millions of islands below also knelt down one by one. Very good. Yi Qinghan's face finally revealed a trace of a smile. This group of bastards, they were born to be lowly. They didn't listen to my kind words and insisted on killing. If I don't beat them down, I won't be able to discuss anything. Emperor, let all the level 9 experts offer their fire of soul. Otherwise, when they go to the plain battlefield, they might betray us. This we have to be on guard. Yi Qinghan was about to continue talking with Gong Tian about the battle when Zhu Yi's voice came. Yi Qinghan hesitated. Since Gong Tian had surrendered and knew that he was no match for him, he shouldn't do such a stupid thing, right? Moreover, since he had beaten them into submission, wasn't it too inhumane to do such a ruthless thing? After martial artists offered their fire of soul, it would be difficult for them to make any progress in their cultivation. At that time, it would cause all the arrogant water god experts to fight back, and it would be troublesome. For a moment, Yi Qinghan couldn't make up his mind. Seeing Yi Qinghan's hesitation, Zhu Yi knew that Yi Qinghan's heart wasn't very ruthless. Sighing, her eyes flickered, and she sent another voice transmission. Emperor, the Water God clan has always been arrogant, and they hold grudges. If it weren't for the fact that they were strong, the divine world was vast, and there were no conflicts of interest, the Fire God clan would have long since eliminated them. You can't control them completely. If they secretly take revenge on your family. Yi Qinghan's body shook. This was related to his family, so his heart hardened. He immediately said in a cold voice, Gong Tian, offer your soul flame. Listen to my command. I will ensure the safety of your Water God clan. Great Emperor, you can't. Yi Qinghan, you're so vicious. Great Emperor, fight him to the death. When has the Water God clan suffered such humiliation? Yi Qinghan, I'll kill you. As soon as Yi Qinghan finished his words, countless level 9 experts below shouted one after another. Their faces were full of anger again, and the resentment in their eyes were extremely obvious. All the 9-stage venerables were brimming with killing intent. Their divine power and spatial power condensed. It was as if they were ready to fight to the death as soon as the universal command was issued. However, although they cursed, no one dared to make a move. Gong Tian looked up at Yi Qinghan with grief and indignation. He was so angry that his body trembled. He tried hard to suppress the rage in his heart and said through gritted teeth, Yi Qinghan, you don't go too far. Go too far? I'm already being merciful by not asking all of you to offer your soul flame. Yi Qinghan thought of Zhu Yi's warning and saw the Water God clan's behavior. He knew that if he didn't control them, there would be endless troubles in the future. He snorted coldly and continued, offer your soul flame and serve me for 1,000,000 years. Then I'll give you back your freedom. This is the bottom line. Otherwise, I'd rather kill all of you to get rid of any future troubles. As soon as he said the last word, Yi Qinghan's killing intent spread out and immediately enveloped everyone. Xiao He also turned into a gust of wind and instantly enveloped everyone, but he didn't devour them immediately. In the distance, Zhu Yi also condensed a 1,000-layer wave that was thousands of meters tall. The direction of the attack was towards the hundreds of millions of islands below. Everyone's breathing quickened. The experts of the Water God clan didn't dare to speak anymore. They were waiting for Gong Tian's orders or watching him become Yi Qinghan's soul slave. Become a humiliating soul slave? Or perhaps the Water God clan would be exterminated. Gong Tian's eyes revealed a pained expression. He turned to look at the experts who had been enveloped by Xiao He, then at the countless people on the islands below, and finally at the murderous Yi Qinghan. He sighed powerlessly. A white flame flew out of his forehead and flew into the space between Yi Qinghan's eyebrows before disappearing. All right, Xiao He, come back. Yi Qinghan breathed a sigh of relief and shouted at Xiao He. At the same time, he threw the blood-colored spear in his hand to Gong Tian and said, Everyone, disperse. Gong Tian, take me to your residence. Yi Qinghan's exchange of the blood-flame spear to Gong Tian not only shocked him, but also caused Zhu Yi to reveal an unconcealable look of disappointment. Zhu Yi had thought that Yi Qinghan would accept the spear. He definitely wouldn't be able to use it. The beast god had the beast divine hall, so this supreme spiritual treasure would definitely be bestowed to her. She hadn't expected that Yi Qinghan would casually return it to Gong Tian. Although Gong Tian was stunned, he also immediately accepted the blood flame spear. This was the Water God clan's most treasured treasure. He then waved his hand to dismiss everyone and flew towards one of the islands below with Yi Qinghan. Humans were very strange creatures. Gongtian had wanted to die just now, so he was filled with grief and indignation. However, once he handed over the soul flame, there was no longer any resentment in his heart. There was only sadness and desolation. The lives of billions of people of the Water God clan were on his shoulders. He couldn't die even if he wanted to. Humans had a habit. Since they had compromised once, they would compromise a second time. This was like a prostitute. Since they had been sold once, they would be sold a second time. The island that Gongtian lived on was in the center of the water mystery realm. A magnificent palace was very obvious. Yi Qinghan and the others landed. The countless people and maids on the island all revealed looks of fear. There was also anger and resentment hidden in the depths of their eyes. Yi Qinghan ignored the crowd and took the initiative to enter the palace. He entered the hall and sat on the main seat. "Master, my lord." Zhu Yi sat next to Yi Qinghan. Gongtian saluted the two with a lonely expression. The maids next to him immediately served fragrant tea spirit fruits. Yi Qinghan sat on the main seat and looked indifferently at the extremely lonely and dispirited Gongtian. He pondered for a moment and said, "Gongtian, I have no intention of making life difficult for your Water God clan. I have no interest in ordering your Water God clan around. But in this planar war, we can only win. We cannot lose. I hope you can understand." "Yes." Gongtian nodded. His face was still gloomy. He had always been arrogant, the peerless genius of the Water God clan, the king of millions of Water God people. At this moment, he had become someone else's sole slave. How could he accept this? "Since the Water God clan wants to hide from the world, I won't force you. It's fine as long as you and all the upper 9th grade warriors fight in this planar war. After the planar war, you can all return to the Water God mystery realm. At that time, I will return your fire of soul and will never step into your Water God mystery realm again." Ah! Yi Qinghan's words startled Zhu Yi and also greatly surprised Gongtian, causing his spirit to shake. The planar war would start in 5,000 years. And before the planar war, Yi Qinghan would not allow him to order him around. So as long as he participated in the planar war, he could get rid of this humiliating identity? "Of course, I have my conditions." Yi Qinghan waved his hand, indicating that Zhu Yi didn't need to persuade him through voice transmission. He faintly said, "In this planar war, all of you must go all out. If I find out that any of you are slacking or playing tricks in the dark, I will definitely annihilate your clan." Looking at Gongtian, whose face had regained some vigor, Yi Qinghan lightly smiled. The reason why he returned the sovereign spiritual treasure, the Spear of Crimson, to Gongtian and made a promise to give him hope. What Yi Qinghan needed were a few teammates who could go all out, not a few bad and resentful people who were dragging him down in the dark. His gaze passed through the palace and looked at the void in the distance. He let out a deep sigh. He had always felt that something ominous would happen in this planar war. Now that the experts of the Water God clan had joined in, especially Gongtian's strength of a 9th grade sovereign, the worry in his heart had lessened a little. Chapter 1307. Yi Qinghan did not stay long in the water mystic realm. He left with Zhu Yi after passing down the first volume of the Ghost Transformation. The first volume of the Ghost Transformation was the easiest to comprehend. After successfully comprehending it, one could change one's appearance and divine power attribute. The second volume could change one's soul attribute and turn one into a completely different person. Yi Qinghan did not teach it to anyone except the Beast God. If one's soul was changed, even Yi Qinghan would not be able to detect it. If it fell into the enemy's hands and was used to assassinate his own family members, it would be a powerful weapon. Yi Qinghan also ordered that no one from the water mystic realm was allowed to come out without his permission. Otherwise, he would kill every single one of them. Since you want to hide from the world, then you can stay there forever. When the news that Yi Qinghan had conquered the water mystic realm reached the divine realm, the morale of the people of the divine realm was greatly boosted. With the experts of the water mystic realm participating in the war, they were more confident in winning the interplanar war. Yi Qinghan did not stop and went straight to Supreme Island. The Star Sea was currently under Zhu Yi's sphere of influence. However, the official army of the Divine Realm had all joined the Yi family army and took orders from the Flame Dragon City. Zhu Yi's influence and rallying power were greatly reduced. Of course, Yi Qinghan was not there to fight with Zhu Yi. He directly entered the Nepha's Abyss. The Nepha's Abyss was guarded by Zhu Yi's 3 lower 9th grade martial artists all year round. The Enchantress, Yi Qingyu, and hundreds of restriction geniuses of the divine world were all concentrating on studying the restrictions set up by the Zhanhuang. Yi Qinghan promised them great rewards. As long as they could comprehend and control Battle Emperor's restrictions, he would give them anything they wanted. The position of Vice City Lord of the Flame Dragon Holy City, supreme grade divine weapons, exotic fruits in the Sealed God Valley, and all kinds of rewards were given to them. These restriction geniuses were all studying in the Nepha's Abyss day and night. Greetings, Your Majesty. Your Majesty, Lord Xiaohe. The moment Yi Qinghan appeared in the Nepha's Abyss, the 3 lower 9th grade war gods immediately noticed him and teleported over to greet him. Yi Qinghan waved his hand, gesturing for the 3 of them to keep quiet. Then, he brought Zhu Yi and Xiaohe and quietly flew forward. The entire Nepha's Abyss was filled with people, but none of them moved. They were either meditating in seclusion somewhere or quietly observing the ubiquitous restrictions. Brother, in a cave far away, Yi Qing was sitting inside. His divine sense was constantly scanning the restrictions in front of him. He seemed to have sensed something and turned his head. When he saw that Yi Qinghan had actually come, he immediately cried out in surprise. This cry startled countless martial artists who were in seclusion or comprehending restrictions. Many of them had never seen Yi Qinghan before, but they all knew that Yi Qingyu was one of Yi Qinghan's wives. In addition, Yao Ji immediately teleported over. How could they not know that the person in front of them was the ruler of the immortal realm? They hastily flew over, knelt on one knee, and said, "Greetings, Emperor Han Yi. Rise." Yi Qinghan said indifferently. He turned his head and smiled at Yao Ji and Yi Qingyu. He asked, "How's the current situation?" Yao Ji leisurely smiled, dazzling the eyes of the surrounding people. She said with slight regret, "The progress is not bad. 2/3 of the restrictions have been broken by us. We can easily control them and repel the enemy. However, the remaining 1/3 of the restrictions are incomparably complicated. The restrictions here are all interconnected. If we don't fully comprehend and control them, we won't be able to open all the restrictions below, and their power will be reduced by more than half." Yi Qingyu sweetly smiled and said, "Brother, Sister Yao Ji, you're amazing. Half of the restrictions were broken by Sister Yao Ji. There's also Brother Lei Hua. He's also very powerful. He's broken a lot of the restrictions." Yi Qinghan raised his eyebrows and said, The Lei Hua who broke the restrictions at the entrance of the 3 mystic realms?" A somewhat dull middle-aged man immediately stepped out from the crowd. He looked a little frightened. He cupped his fists at Yi Qinghan and said, "Yes, Your Majesty. Yes, it's me, Empress Qingyu. I don't deserve to be called Brother Lei Hua. Also, my restriction skills are far inferior to Empress Yao Ji's. I'm very ashamed. There's still 5,000 years before the dimensional war begins. In the last dimensional war, the realm of divinity was defeated. However, at that time, the Emperor of War was here. He used the restrictions here to suppress the 3 ancestor fiends of the realm of divinity. No one can predict the outcome of this dimensional war. Therefore, we must take precautions. If we lose, we can only rely on the restrictions here to protect the realm of divinity. Therefore, your task is extremely difficult. I hope you will work hard to comprehend the restrictions here and gain control over them as soon as possible." "Yi Qinghan thanks everyone," said Yi Qinghan in a serious tone. He then cupped his fists at the crowd, causing the hundreds of restriction geniuses in the air to feel terrified. In the realm of divinity, Comprehending the laws of cultivation and improving one's strength was the way to go. These geniuses liked to study things that were considered unorthodox by the realm of divinity. They had always been looked down upon and ridiculed by their respective families. Now that the number one person in the realm of divinity was acting like this, they were even more excited than when they were rewarded with treasures and beauties. Yi Qinghan looked at the excited geniuses who went back to comprehend the restrictions. He smiled at Zhu Yi beside him and said, "Actually, what these people need is not a reward, but recognition and respect. Yao Ji, this restriction is very important. I'll leave it to you." Yao Ji glared at Yi Qinghan. She was a little angry, but the joy in her eyes could not be concealed. After staying in the Nifa's abyss for a while, Yi Qinghan returned to the Supreme Island. No one could comprehend the restrictions in peace while he was there, so he decisively came out. After seeing the situation in the Nifa's abyss with his own eyes, Yi Qinghan felt more at ease. He liked to anticipate victory and defeat so that he could prepare a path of retreat and think of the worst-case scenario. He was the boss of the realm of divinity in this dimensional war. He would definitely make a big move during the final battle. His power of cold was extremely unique, so it was difficult for him not to attract attention. Together with Xiao Hei's strange soul form, he was even more eye-catching. The location of the final battle was under Mount Pan, where a supreme god emperor lived. If the supreme god emperor discovered that something was amiss, he could eliminate him and the realm of divinity would be defeated. With this restriction, the realm of divinity would have the ability to protect itself. After staying in Zhu Yi's newly built palace for a few days, Yi Qinghan and Zhu Yi did a few things that were beyond friendship. Then, Yi Qinghan returned to Flame Dragon City, preparing to go into seclusion again to break through the bottleneck of the ultimate mystery. However, this seclusion lasted for 2,000 years, and he was still stuck at the ultimate mystery. Yi Qinghan simply came out of seclusion to accompany the ladies, guide the juniors in their cultivation, and occasionally take Xiao Hei to play around. 100 years later, Yi Qinghan went into seclusion again. This time, he was going to wait until the dimensional war began. If he still couldn't merge with the ultimate mystery, then he would have to participate in the dimensional war first. 3,000 years passed in the blink of an eye. Inside the War Imperial Hall, Yi Qinghan opened his eyes on time. His eyes were filled with deep exhaustion and helplessness. He let out a long breath and stood up. He rubbed his nose in embarrassment and sighed. Strange. This young master has been trying to comprehend the ultimate mystery for 7,000 years. This ultimate mystery is definitely not in the wrong direction. Why am I stuck for 7,000 years? Could it be that the laws of heaven and earth don't recognize me because my soul is too strange? This is really strange. From comprehending the ultimate mystery of space to major accomplishment, Yi Qinghan spent less than 100 years. Just as he was about to major accomplishment, his laws of heaven and earth were about to break through to the 9th grade. He was stuck for several thousand years. It almost drove him crazy. Forget it. The dimensional war is about to begin. If I can survive this time, I will comprehend it properly. Dimensional war. This young master is coming. Yi Qinghan stretched his numb body. His expression brightened up, and his eyes shone with divine light as he went into the War Imperial Hall. Chapter 1308. As soon as Yi Qinghan returned to the Flame Dragon City's rooftop, countless divine senses swept over him, followed by countless messages. Yi Qinghan was too lazy to send messages. He activated his divine power and shouted, "The planar war is about to begin. All sovereigns, gather in Flame Dragon City." As soon as Yi Qinghan gave the order, the entire divine world was shaken. Yi Qinghan's voice was mixed with the heavenly devil voice, and there was a faint battle intent in his tone, causing countless martial artists in the divine world to feel slightly excited. The planar war was random. Sometimes, if one was unlucky, they would participate once every tens of thousands of years. These years, the divine world had been lucky. It only happened once every 100 years. The divine world only knew about the planar war in legends. The martial artists of the younger generation had never seen it before. Now that they could finally participate, the divine world citizens were excited and looking forward to it. Lei Jun and the beast god teleported over immediately. They were already in Flame Dragon's sacred city. The beast god would represent the beast god race to participate in the planar war. Yi Feihu would oversee the divine world. This matter had been decided long ago. Following that, the Ice Queen and Zhu Yi arrived with their men. All the sovereigns of the divine world arrived one after another. Yu Qingcheng and the others were alarmed too. They came to meet Yi Qinghan in a hurry. Seeing that Yi Qinghan wanted to discuss business, they left obediently. Yi Qinghan sat in the main seat of the 5th floor of the city lord manor. He looked at Lei Jun and Emperor Yu and said, "Uncle Lei Jun, Emperor Yu, are the low-level martial artists ready?" Lei Jun stood up with a solemn expression. He said in a deep voice, "They are ready. Among the 1 million martial artists, 700,000 from the official army will be sent. They are all experienced martial artists. Ice and Snow Island will send 100,000, Green Mountain Tribe will send 100,000, and other special races with special skills will send 100,000. They will be divided into 100 small teams and mixed together. 100 years ago, I sent them out in batches to train. They will combine with the battle formation given by Queen Zhu Yi and the Spirit Eater Army's battle formation. The effect is not bad. Uncle Lei Jun has worked hard." Yi Qinghan nodded contentedly. Lei Jun used to be the elder of the Lei family's battle hall, so he was good at large-scale battles. At the same time, Emperor Yu was the leader of the Soul Devourer army. That year, he had followed Lord Devourer to sweep the Wandering Sea. Yi Qinghan had long ago handed over the task of assembling and training the Planar War Legion to them. If Lei Jun said that the training was effective, then it must be very effective. As for the rank 9 martial artists, me, Old Ancestor, Zhu Yi, Ice Queen, Water Mystery Land, and Wind Moon Monarch are enough. Yi Qinghan did a head count. The reason why he didn't send Yi Feihu, who was stronger than him, was because the immortal realm needed an expert to hold down the fort. Secondly, the Wind Moon Monarch knew some restrictions. She would be more useful in the planar battlefield than Yi Feihu. We can send someone into the Water God realm and send a message for Gong Tian and the others to come out. After calculating the time, Yi Qinghan turned around and ordered Zhu Yi. He then transmitted his voice to the beast god and Zhu Yi. "Have you guys succeeded in cultivating the ghost transformation?" The two of them nodded their heads. Yi Qinghan then stood up with a solemn expression and said, "We are going to participate in the planar war. Everything in the immortal realm will be managed by Kid Lei Jun and Yi Feihu. If we are defeated, or if we are all wiped out, the immortal realm will depend on you guys." Emperor. Everyone saw that Yi Qinghan's words were somewhat pessimistic and carried a trace of determination. A few of them cried out involuntarily. Yi Qinghan waved his hand and said with a smile, "The life of Yi Qinghan, is not so easy to take. Shinto Xiong can't, the Demon Sovereign can't, and the experts in the planar battlefield can't either. Everyone, settle the matters in the immortal realm. Work hard in your cultivation, and wait for our good news." Everyone agreed readily. They thought of Yi Qinghan's insane strength and Xiao Hei's terrifying devouring ability. The immortal realm did not seek first place this time. They only sought victory. If there were no accidents, it should not be a big problem. Everyone bade farewell and went back to prepare for the start of the planar war. The planar war would start a year later. Yi Qinghan spent this period of time with his family and enjoyed the happiness of a family. Xiao Hei also accompanied Li Shui and Demon Devourer all day long. They relaxed and prepared for the war. A year later, on the plaza of the Supreme Island, experts gathered and there was a hubbub of voices. Millions of martial artists in green battle armor lined up neatly on the plaza. They were all armed with superior-grade battle sabers. Their expressions were solemn, and their armor glowed with a cold light. Their killing intent soared into the sky. Beside them were martial artists who came to watch the show or to send them off. There were millions of them. Seeing the immortal realm's army, everyone's confidence was boosted and they were excited. There There was a ripple in the sky, and 10 figures appeared in the sky. At the front was a black-haired man in fiery red battle armor. He carried a 2-meter-long black battle saber on his back. Although he did not emit any aura, he was like a dazzling star that attracted everyone's attention. Greetings, the Arch. The millions of martial artists were the first to kneel on one knee and shouted in unison. Their voices pierced through the sky and the horizon. Then, the millions of martial artists who were watching also kneeled on one knee and shouted. Yi Qinghan waved his hand, and the people below became silent. Everyone looked at him with burning eyes. Yi Qinghan did not hesitate at all. He had seen such a scene many times. He said in a deep voice, "When the planar war started, the immortal realm was summoned to participate. More than 1,000,000 years ago, the immortal realm was defeated, and the demon realm obtained the right to invade the immortal realm. For 1,000,000 years, the people of the immortal realm were harassed by the demon realm. How many people of the immortal realm died in the hands of the demon realm? This time, we are going to the planar war to remove the identity of the defeated plane and reclaim the glory of the immortal realm. Are you all willing to fight for the immortal realm with me?" "Yes, we are willing to follow the Arch to conquer the planar war." An orderly shout sounded. Everyone's emotions were stirred up by Yi Qinghan, and they shouted at the top of their lungs. The sovereigns originally thought that Yi Qinghan would promise these ordinary martial artists high positions, generous salaries, spirit fruits, treasures, and secret techniques. They thought that he would give a long speech. They did not expect that Yi Qinghan's words would raise everyone's morale to the peak, and they secretly gave him a thumbs up. Yi Qinghan did not say anything else. He waved his hand and pointed at the teleportation array. He shouted, "What are you waiting for? All legions, take turns to enter the teleportation array and fight." The 1,000,000 martial artists entered the largest teleportation array on the plaza in an orderly manner and were transported to the Nephi's abyss in turn. The plaza was silent, and only the sound of the teleportation array could be heard. The surrounding martial artists watched silently as the martial artists were continuously teleported into the teleportation array with complicated expressions. They knew that these martial artists were going to fight for the billions of people of the immortal realm. However, they did not know how many of these 1,000,000 martial artists would return safely after 100 years. Wait for my return. When all the Emperor God martial artists entered the teleportation array, Yi Qinghan turned around and looked at the group of figures on the balcony of the city lord residence of Supreme Island. He murmured to himself. Then he looked at Xiao He, who was still bidding farewell to Li Shui and the demon devourer demon, and shouted, "Xiao He, let's go." He, Yao Yao, listen to your mother obediently. Wait for boss and I to return victorious. Xiao He laughed and turned into a gust of wind, entering the slaughter god blade on Yi Qinghan's back. The 10 sovereigns stepped onto the teleportation array, and it lit up immediately. Under the gaze of millions of martial artists, they disappeared from Supreme Island. Qinghan, Little Han, Father, Big Uncle, Xiao He. On the balcony of the city lord residence, countless pairs of eyes dimmed the moment the teleportation array lit up. Although Yi Qinghan and Xiao He were very strong now, and although Yi Qinghan did not say many things, everyone felt an inexplicable sense of worry. However, Xiao He needed a large amount of energy to evolve, and based on Yi Qinghan's personality, it was impossible for him to ignore the immortal realm. Therefore, no one tried to persuade them. They only prayed silently and waited for their return. Chapter 1309. The dimensional battlefield was still desolate and ancient, as if it had been here since the beginning of the world. 1,000,000 martialists stood neatly in the lava canyon. However, their gazes were filled with curiosity as they surveyed their surroundings. It was obvious that this was the first time they had stepped into the dimensional battlefield. Even the beast deity, Zhu Yigongtian, and the others were surveying their surroundings curiously. Except for the Wind Moon Monarch, the Ice Queen, and Yi Qinghan who had snuck in, no one else had been here before. Countless sovereigns had participated in the dimensional war in the divine realm. Even Ice Queen Kid had participated. However, the Divine Realm had been defeated, and almost all the low-level warriors had died. The rest had surrendered. Then the Demon Realm had attacked the Divine Realm, and almost all the sovereigns had died. Kid and the Wind Moon Monarch had been venerables at that time, and had broken through by luck. If not for the death of a group of 9th grade warriors, they would not have been able to become sovereigns. This time, Yi Qinghan did not bring any venerables. Actually, if he could have fought alone, Yi Qinghan would not have brought anyone. He would have come alone. He had participated in the Dimensional War and knew that even lower 9th grade warriors were nothing here. Venerables coming here were simply throwing away their lives and points. The Plane of Heaven had more archangels than venerables. Last time, there were 400 to 500 of them. They could afford to die, but the Divine Realm could not. The venerables were the preparation camp for 9th grade war gods. If all the venerables died, could 7th grade war gods break through to 9th grade? Even the army below was specially chosen by Lei Jun and Emperor Yu under Yi Qinghan's orders. They were all warriors who had cultivated for at least hundreds of thousands of years. It was difficult to break through, and it was not a pity if they died. No one is allowed to fly. There are restrictions in the sky. Do not move. Everyone, leave the canyon and follow us. Yi Qinghan took the lead and flew forward. His divine sense was the strongest, but he did not need to do any scouting. Xiao He whizzed out and flew at a low altitude. He circled the army and began to scout in all directions. Yi Qinghan handed the command of the army to Zhu Yi. He and the Beast God, Ice Queen, and Wind Moon Monarch were in front. Their divine senses constantly swept forward, searching for hidden restrictions. Gong Tian brought the 4 upper 9th grade Water God clan cultivators to bring up the rear. The army left the valley and ran towards the huge mountain range ahead. Last time, when Yi Qinghan had entered the planar battlefield, he had followed the army of the Paradise Plain without any worries. This time it was different. If the Celestial Realm's army was ambushed and completely wiped out, even if they could obtain a large number of points in the end, it would not be worth it. The speed of the army was very slow. Yi Qinghan did not need anyone to lead him. He relied on his physical strength to walk. If there were only a few 9th grade martial artists, they would definitely be fast. But there were millions of soldiers and restrictions everywhere in the plain battlefield, so they had to be careful. After walking for a day, the army was already in the mountain range, heading towards the Devil Mountain. Everyone could feel the oppressive atmosphere in the dimensional battlefield. They also saw Yi Qinghan and the other 9th grade war gods wearing solemn expressions, not daring to look around. They marched in silence and were secretly on guard. Xiao, boss, there is a small army in front of us, about 10,000 people, led by a lower 9th grade war god. A day and a half later, a gust of wind blew by. Xiao He shouted excitedly from afar, which made the millions of martial artists excited. They all rubbed their palms together, ready to fight immediately and swallow these 10,000 people. Yi Qinghan waved his hand, and everyone stopped moving forward. Yi Qinghan turned his head and spoke in a low voice, but his voice reached the ears of every martial artist. Zhu Yi, ancestor, you two stay here and guard. Be alert at all times. If there is an enemy attack, just hold your ground and wait for my return. Wind Moon Sovereign, lead me. Xiao He, lead the way. Since Yi Qinghan had already given the order, everyone originally wanted to warm up after a big battle. Now, they could only awkwardly stay where they were, waiting for orders according to the defensive battle formation that Lei Jun had practiced. Xiao He, quietly scout the surroundings. Make sure there are no experts lying in ambush, and immediately swallow them. Remember, do not touch the restrictions in the sky, understand? After running for 2 hours, Yi Qinghan's divine sense had already quietly detected a large group of martial artists in front of them. He immediately concealed his aura and transmitted his voice to Xiao He. Okay, boss, watch me. Xiao He originally wanted to swallow them, but Yi Qinghan had instructed him not to do so without his order. He could only go back and report to Yi Qinghan. At this moment, he excitedly circled to the side and began to scout the surroundings. Emperor, should we make a move? Wind Moon Sovereign nervously rubbed his hands. 10,000 people, that was at least 10,000 points. Adding a lower 9th grade war god, that was 20,000 points. He did not expect to get 20,000 points the moment he entered the dimensional battlefield. The points of the dimensional battlefield were easy to calculate. Those below the venerable level had white badges, 1 point for one. Even peak 7th grade war gods had 1 point. However, it was different when one reached the venerable level. The venerable badge was blue, 1,000 points. 9th grade war gods had black badges, 10,000 points each. Lower and peak 9th grade war gods had the same price. There was no difference. 9th grade supreme being was the highest level. Golden badges, 50,000 points each. To win in the dimensional battlefield, one had to have more than 1 to 5 million points. Of course, killing the martial artists of this dimension did not count. Also, if more than half of the 9th grade war gods surrendered, they would immediately be transported to Mount Pan and belong to the side of the defeated dimension. No matter how many points they had, it would be useless. The last time Yi Ching Han was in the dimensional battlefield, he only wanted to go home. He did not care about these things, nor did he ask about them. Now, of course, he knew everything. 1,500,000 points did not seem difficult to obtain. As long as he killed 1,500,000 ordinary martial artists, or 39th grade supreme beings, he could immediately win. If there were 1,500,000 martial artists standing in front of Yi Ching Han, perhaps Yi Ching Han could easily kill them with one slap. But which army did not have 9th grade war gods? Most importantly, unless it was a decisive battle, it would be difficult to meet a large army. Unless Yi Ching Han led the army outside the Demon Mountain. However, the Demon Mountain was huge, and there were many restrictions outside. If things went wrong, the entire army might be wiped out. Seeing that Yi Ching Han was deep in thought, Sovereign Wind Moon said agitatedly, Emperor, do we need to make a move? Yi Ching Han looked at Sovereign Wind Moon, who was like a country bumpkin who had never seen the world. He continued to use his divine sense and said lightly, no need. Wait for Xiao He to return. Xiao He's devouring ability was heaven-defying. Everyone in the divine realm knew this. The Demon Supreme was devoured by Xiao He. However, most people in the divine realm did not know that Xiao He was the most cruel to low-level martial artists. No matter how many martial artists below the venerable level came, Xiao He could kill them all in one move. Ah! Woo! Hiss! Indeed, not long after, there were screams from afar. However, these screams only lasted for a moment and immediately quieted down. Sovereign Wind Moon's divine sense was not strong. He did not know what happened. He looked at Yi Ching Han blankly. Yi Ching Han clapped his hands and said nonchalantly, let's go. Xiao He is done. Let's go collect the badges. What? 10,000 people with a 9th grade powerhouse leading them, and they were all killed in an instant? This? Sovereign Wind Moon shuddered. He looked at Yi Ching Han's back in disbelief. He swallowed his saliva and rushed forward in disbelief. Chapter 13:10. After running for a while, there was a faint smell of blood in the air. When Yi Ching Han and the Wind Moon Monarch arrived at the battlefield, they saw a mountain covered in blood. The blood formed a river that flowed into the distance. There were white badges all over the ground. There were also a few blue ones and one black one. What was weird was that Wind Moon Monarch didn't see a single corpse. He didn't even know what kind of alien beings they were. There are no enemies nearby? Yi Ching Han raised his head and asked Xiao He, who was flying low in the sky. Xiao He seemed to have not eaten its fill, and it curled its lips and nodded. Only then did Yi Ching Han relax and say to Wind Moon Monarch, who was in a daze, why are you still in a daze? Collect the badges. Wind Moon Monarch came back to his senses and didn't dare to ask anymore. He flew over and grabbed the air, excitedly collecting all the badges. They hadn't even entered Demon Mountain, and they got 20,000 points. If this continued, they would easily get 5 million points. Wind Moon Monarch brought Yi Ching Han and Xiao He back and told them about the 20,000 points. The entire army was pumped up. However, when Wind Moon Monarch passed the badge to Yi Qinghan passed it to Ice Queen and told them to continue marching. Although Ice Queen found it weird, even if Yi Qinghan didn't take it himself, he should have given it to Beast God Zhu Yi. Why did he give it to her? However, since Yi Qinghan gave the order, she became the God World Points manager. In the future, all the badges would be given to her. 3 days later, the army didn't meet any more alien armies and safely arrived outside of Demon Mountain. The moment they arrived, Zhu Yi gave the order to set up camp and arrange for scouts and spies to hide in all directions to ensure that if alien experts attacked, they would be alerted. Yi Qinghan didn't rest. He first brought Xiaohe to scout around. He then told Wind Moon Monarch to lay down some restrictions around. Although Wind Moon Monarch's restriction skills were not as strong as Yao Ji's, he was still the God Realm's supreme master of artifact forging, so his restriction skills were still there. What surprised everyone was that Yi Qinghan actually told the Wind Moon Monarch to set up restrictions at the entrances of Devil Mountain. Furthermore, the restrictions laid down did not have to have great destructive power. They only had to have a shocking aura. Such an arrangement. Not only were low-level warriors unable to understand, even Beast Deity Zhu, he could not understand. After arranging everything, Yi Qinghan immediately gave the order for the 1,000,000 soldiers to be split into 3 batches and take turns to enter the Devil Mountain. However, he gave a strict order that they were not to go too far after entering the Devil Mountain. They could only stand guard near the passageway. If there were experts from other planes passing by, kill the weak ones immediately. If they were too strong, retreat immediately and rely on the restrictions to protect themselves. Finally, when Yi Qinghan gathered all the level 9 experts and told them that he and Xiaohe were going into the depths of Devil Mountain, everyone finally understood Yi Qinghan's intentions. Yi Qinghan and Xiaohe actually planned to stay in Devil Mountain for 90 years, killing along the way to earn enough points in Devil Mountain. After 90 years, everyone would teleport to Mount Pan together and immediately choose to withdraw from the battle. Withdrawal was not surrender. Those who had earned enough points and did not want to fight for first place could withdraw from the battle. If they surrendered, they would immediately belong to the losing side. No, little Han, it's too dangerous for you to act like this. I'll go with you so that we can look after each other. The beast god's wrinkled face twisted in anger. All right, Zhu Yi also said worriedly. Yes, Emperor. Inside Devil Mountain, there are only small-scale battles. It's impossible for you to earn so many points. Moreover, if you and Xiaohe are targeted and surrounded, the enemy doesn't even need to kill you. They just need to wait for your cold energy to be used up, and you can only wait for your death. This is too dangerous. Why don't we fish in troubled waters during the final battle and use Xiaohe's strength to swallow a bunch of low-level martial artists? Once we have enough points, we will immediately announce our withdrawal from the battle. Ice Queen and the others couldn't persuade him. They just looked at Yi Qinghan worriedly. Yi Qinghan was the leader of the God World and also their leader. Once Yi Qinghan died, the God World would be in chaos once more. These few years, everyone was used to relying on Yi Qinghan and liked the current situation in the God World. Yi Qinghan said firmly, "There's no need to say more. I've made up my mind. I will try my best to earn enough points. If I don't, I can only rely on you all during the final battle. Little Han, if you don't give me a reason, I won't agree." Beast God didn't notice the hidden meaning in Yi Qinghan's words and said stubbornly. He didn't understand why Yi Qinghan, as the commander of the army, didn't stay at the headquarters and take the risk alone. Although Yi Qinghan had accumulated a lot of cold energy, if he went through a few battles and used up all his cold energy, he might die. Old ancestor. Yi Qinghan sighed helplessly and said, "Xiaohe and I can't fight at the foot of Mount Pan. I can't tell you the exact reason. I have my difficulties. Remember my words. You can only stay here and don't go deep into the Demon Mountain. Xiaohe, let's go." After Yi Qinghan finished speaking, he retracted his god domain and brought Xiaohe into the Demon Mountain. Everyone looked at each other, not understanding Yi Qinghan's words. The Emperor and Xiaohe can't fight at the foot of Mount Pan? Is he worried about that person on Mount Pan? Zhu, Yi, and Beast God looked at each other and understood what the other two were thinking, but they became even more worried. That's right. The reason why Yi Qinghan and Blackett chose to enter Mount Pan immediately was because they wanted to rely on their strength to earn enough points to enter the realm of the gods. Yi Qinghan's soul mutation and Xiao Hei's strange soul were incompatible with this world, or rather, they were heresy. The plain battlefield was a chaotic place, so Yi Qinghan wasn't worried about the Divine Emperor finding out. But if they were to fight at the foot of Mount Pan, Yi Qinghan's strange cold energy and Xiao Hei's abnormal soul would definitely stand out. If the Divine Emperor were to stand on Mount Pan and take a look, although he wasn't sure if the Divine Emperor would know that he and Xiao Hei were abnormal existences. If he and Xiao Hei were to fight at the foot of Mount Pan and were discovered by the Divine Emperor, would the Divine Emperor intervene? But Yi Qinghan didn't dare to gamble, so he could only work hard to earn points. Once he had enough, he would immediately teleport to Mount Pan and announce his withdrawal. Yi Qinghan entered the passageway of the Demon Mountain once more. Looking at the familiar light blue and light purple passageway, he thought back to the first time he saw this passageway. He was wild with joy. Smiling, he called out to Little Black and started running with all his might. "Boss, I'll go scout ahead. You have to hurry." Xiao Hei let out a cheerful cry. He liked to fight together with Yi Qinghan and Xiao Hei the most. He felt uncomfortable fighting with everyone else. He turned into a gust of wind and flew forward. Yi Qinghan could only smile bitterly as he ran. His cold energy wasn't inexhaustible. He also planned to not fight unless it was necessary. Of course, he couldn't use cold energy to walk, so he could only rely on his physical strength to run. The Demon Mountain only had 90 years. He had stayed here for a few decades, so he knew that the Demon Mountain was filled with endless passageways. If he was lucky, he could meet a team every 10 days or half a month. If he was unlucky, he couldn't even meet a martial artist for a few years. Right now, in order to save time, he had to run with all his might. As he ran, he used his divine sense to explore. Yi Qinghan's eyes were filled with murderous intent. He bent down and ran, growling, 90 years. I have to kill enough martial artists in 90 years. The Divine Emperor, please bless me and let me meet rank 9 martial artists and legions. Otherwise, I'll have to go through other passageways and fight the legions from other planes. Chapter 13:11. Rustle, rustle, rustle. A series of footsteps rang out in a huge passageway, startling a team of mantis men nearby. Scanning with their divine senses, the team of mantis men was overjoyed. There was actually a lone martial artist. Judging from his running speed, he was only at the level of a god general. It must be an idiot who ran into the teleportation formation, right? However, just as the team of mantis men was rubbing their fists and getting ready to collect this small badge, suddenly, a breeze blew in the passageway. All the mantis men felt a chill. Then, there was nothing else. "Boss, hurry and come and collect the badge. There's another team ahead. I'll go over first." The breeze condensed into Xiao Hei's appearance. Xiao Hei let out a cheerful cry and turned into a breeze, blowing quietly ahead. After Xiao Hei ran for a while, Yi Qinghan finally arrived. He quickly picked up the dozens of badges on the ground, a bitter smile on his face. He sighed. How long will I be able to accumulate one? 5 million points like this? Yi Qinghan's divine sense swept forward, and Xiao Hei swept towards another team. Yi Qinghan could only smile bitterly and run forward again. It had been 3 years. Yi Qinghan had been running madly in the Demon Mountain for 3 whole years. He had encountered dozens of teams. However, it was obvious that they had all been teleported here because they had touched the teleportation formation. They were all small teams. He had not encountered a large group. There were too many passageways in the Demon Mountain. The terrain was complicated. Yi Qinghan had no idea where he had gone. Anyway, he planned to stay here for 90 years. When the final battle came, he would be teleported to the bottom of the mountain. By the time Yi Qinghan ran over, Xiao Hei had already finished his battle. There were dozens of white badges scattered on the ground. Yi Qinghan scanned with his divine senses. There were no other martial artists nearby. He casually picked up the badges and sat on the ground, panting heavily as he rested. The days without God power were so hard. He was a ninth-grade supremacy, but when he ran at full speed, he only had the speed of a first-layer divine general. Furthermore, this was because he had comprehended the unyielding Tao and had his physical body tempered by the divine lightning, increasing his speed by half. Otherwise, it would be no different from a heavenly god running at full speed. Boss, this isn't a solution. We've only collected a few thousand points, right? It's been 3 years. Xiaohei frowned and said in a low voice as he watched from the side. Yi Qinghan ran his fingers through his hair and sighed helplessly. What can we do? There was no direction to speak of in this damn place. If one was lucky, they would run into a large army in succession. If we're unlucky, it'll be hard for us to even encounter a large army in 8 to 10 years. Xiaohei's brows were tightly knitted together. His pair of spirited eyes started to move around randomly. A moment later, he suddenly shouted, "What? Boss, I have an idea. Let's go find the teleportation formation and teleport anywhere we want. With our strength, as long as we don't encounter 3 ninth-grade supreme martial artists, what do we have to fear? After the teleportation, if there are no large legions nearby, continue to look for the teleportation restriction. It's much better than running around randomly like this." Good. Good idea. Xiaohei, I didn't expect you to think of such a good idea. Huh? Let's go. Let's go. When Yi Qinghan heard this, he pondered for a moment and was overjoyed. He had been running around for 3 years and was exhausted. He probably didn't run very far. This teleportation restriction could teleport people randomly. It was much better than running around randomly. Yi Qinghan immediately activated his divine sense and ran all the way. He searched for teleportation restrictions along the way. After 2 hours, he finally found 3 teleportation restrictions in a dead-end tunnel. Xiaohei, enter the Slaughter God's saber. Yi Qinghan rested for a moment and shouted at Xiaohei. The cold energy that he hadn't used for 3 years filled his body again. It felt very comfortable. The Fire God battle armor also appeared quietly. Chaotic energy was used to protect the divine crystal. As for his soul, Yi Qinghan never worried about it. He didn't have any protection. Of course, he didn't have much chaotic energy either. It wasn't enough to protect his soul, so he didn't bother about it. After Xiaohei entered the Slaughter God saber, Yi Qinghan immediately stepped into the teleportation restriction. A white light flashed, and the scene in front of him changed. Yi Qinghan immediately activated his divine sense and scanned the surroundings. After confirming that there were no legions or experts from other dimensions nearby, he disarmed himself and retracted his cold energy. Xiaohei, come out. Let's see how lucky we are this time. When Xiaohei heard the summoning, he immediately floated out happily. He turned into a light breeze and flew forward. He shouted, "Boss, hurry up and follow me. Let's go kill people." Yi Qinghan immediately followed and sprinted. He was not afraid of the sound of running. His divine sense was extremely strong. If others could hear him running, it meant that everything was already under his control. After 2 hours, Yi Qinghan's face lit up. He immediately sent a voice transmission to Xiaohei. "Xiaohei, come back. There's a large legion in front of us. There are thousands of them. They're a big fat sheep." Xiaohei did not say a word. He immediately flew back. He knew that Yi Qinghan would definitely scout ahead and that there were powerhouses who could discover him. As expected, when he returned and saw Yi Qinghan, his eyes lit up. He chuckled. "There are 2 lower-ranked 9 martial artists. They're beast men. Don't go over first. You'll alert them. Wait for me to get closer before you attack. I'll take care of them." 2 lower-rank 9 martial artists. Wow, 20,000 points. Xiaohei beamed when he heard that. Right now, these lower-rank 9 martial artists were no different from fish on a chopping board in his eyes. Yi Qinghan quietly moved forward. This time, he did not dare to make any reckless running sounds. He was afraid that he would alert the 2 big fish. Although he was not afraid that the 2 of them would slip away, this was his first time encountering big fish in Devil Mountain. It was better to be cautious. "It's about time. Xiaohei, make your move." Less than an hour later, Yi Qinghan called out softly. Xiao He, who had been waiting impatiently for a long time, whizzed out, bringing with him a piercingly cold gust of wind as he swept forward. Sister, what kind of guy is this? In the passageway ahead, a large legion of beast men was advancing slowly. Two of the tallest beast men felt that something was wrong. They looked behind them with extreme vigilance. However, they were startled when they saw a gust of wind blowing toward them. There's an enemy. Make your move. Two beast men, one with a leopard's head and the other with a lion's head, had human bodies. The two of them roared. Their bodies swelled up like balloons. Originally, they were only 2 meters tall, but in an instant, they became more than 10 meters tall. They were like beastmen gods that had walked out of the ancient god realm. Their bodies emitted a violent and fierce aura, and the hair on their bodies stood on end. Sister, transform. All the beastmen patted their chests and roared. Their bodies also became 7 to 8 meters tall. Their eyes were filled with ferocity as they stared at the gust of wind, ready to fight. However, the gust of wind was still blowing in their direction. The thousands of beastmen did not sense the enemy. Although the two beastman commanders felt an extreme sense of danger, they did not sense the enemy. Whoa. Seeing that the gust of wind was getting closer, the two beastman commanders could not stand it anymore. With a roar, their thick legs stomped heavily on the ground, causing the ground nearby to tremble slightly. Two huge figures shot toward the gust of wind, for sharp claw-like fists flickered with a black light that no one dared to look directly at. A frightening aura came from the black light, and faintly cracks appeared in the space around them. Boss, make your move. Kill, kill, kill. As soon as the two beastman commanders made their move, the thousands of low-ranked beastmen immediately shouted in excitement. Then, the two beastman commanders bared their fangs and brandished their claws as they charged toward the gust of wind. You half-human, half-beastmen, tremble at the feet of this Lord Xiao He. Unbridled laughter came from the gust of wind. The cyan wind suddenly became transparent and directly passed through the bodies of the two beastman commanders. In an instant, it enveloped the low-ranked beastmen behind them. Chapter 13:12. Sister Luo, what fellow? Boss, save us. Motherf asterisk Kerr. Sister Luo, save me. All the low-level half-beastmen had frightened expressions on their faces. Their bodies twisted frantically as they screamed and fled in all directions. However, they discovered in despair that their bodies were being corroded at a speed visible to the naked eye. Many of the half-beastmen had just run a few steps when they discovered that half of their bodies were gone. Many of them only managed to shout halfway before their heads were gone. Dark red blood flowed on the ground, dyeing the dark red-black stones on the ground even more brightly. The air was filled with the pungent smell of blood, extremely unpleasant to the nose. Sister Luo, Smita, run. Number 2, run away, fellow. The two half-beastman commanders were enraged. The black light on their fists expanded, but they saw that thousands of people had been completely devoured by Xiao He in the blink of an eye. The two of them only abruptly waved 2 black lights at Xiao He and immediately turned to flee, their speed soaring to the limit. Xiao He's terrifying ability had scared the two of them out of their wits. The gust of wind that Xiao He had transformed into immediately turned transparent, dodging the two's attacks. Ignoring the two of them, he finished devouring all the half-beastmen and condensed his main body in the air, standing calmly in the midst of the chaos. The two half-beastmen were overjoyed to see that Xiao He did not chase after them. Their speed was even faster. The two of them had never seen such a strange and terrifying monster. It must be known that there were several low-level commanders in the army just now, but they were actually devoured in the blink of an eye. Their plane was considered a very powerful plane, so they had some basic understanding of the races in the plane battlefield. However, they had never heard of a monster like Xiao He. Sister Luo? Boss, there's a human fellow in front. Oh, it's fine, it's just a trash fellow. After running for dozens of miles, the two half-beastmen heaved a sigh of relief when they saw that Xiao He still did not chase after them. Their spiritual senses detected a cultivator in front of them. This cultivator walked over lazily with his head lowered, startling the two of them. However, the person in front of them did not have any strength at all. Although the two of them felt a little strange, they did not stop and continued to rush forward. Eh? That piece of trash actually took the initiative to rush up to die? To the two Beastman commanders' surprise, the azure-robed cultivator in front actually started running quickly. Furthermore, he drew a 2-meter-long black saber from his back, his expression cold. Courting death, the two half-beastmen were furious. Since when could this kind of trash wave his blade at them? His thick thighs stomped heavily on the ground. The two of them turned into 2 cannonballs and blasted towards the tiny human in front of them. Show! However, the martial artist in front did not retreat. Instead, his speed suddenly soared. His body also split into 2, then into 4, and finally into more than 10 figures blocking the passage. Their speed was so fast that the two of them were dazzled. Furthermore, there were more than 10 figures with demonic glints in their eyes. The Beastman on the left trembled and immediately felt a splitting headache. He grabbed his head and rolled to the ground. Soul extermination. Yi Qinghan's expression was cold. Once again, he activated the soul extermination. After that, more than 10 figures rushed towards the other lower-ranked 9 martial artists in the air. The 2-meter-long black slaughter god saber swung in a semicircle and slashed towards the neck of the Beastman commander, who was about to fall to the ground after the soul extermination attack. The hand rose, and the saber fell. In the next moment, the Beastman commander's head flew down with its round eyes. Dark red blood splattered all over the face of the other commander, who had just crawled to his feet. Boss! That Beastman commander was stimulated by the fresh blood. His entire body surged with a tyrannical aura. He knew that he was not Yi Qinghan's opponent. However, his entire body shone with a black light as he smashed towards 3 or 4 of Yi Qinghan's doppelgangers. You can go now! Yi Qinghan's real body had already appeared behind this Beastman commander. With a flash of the Slaughter God Saber, the cold energy flowed along the Slaughter God Saber and smashed into the Beastman's head. The sound of a melon breaking could be heard. The huge leopard's head was smashed into pieces. Brain juice and blood splattered everywhere. It died immediately. Destruction Law? The power of destruction? It's a pity that your strength is too strong, but your reaction speed is too slow. Yi Qinghan kept the Slaughter God Saber, and the more than 10 doppelgangers in the air immediately disappeared. The huge Beastman corpse in front of him slowly collapsed. Yi Qinghan kept the 2 black badges. Xiaohe also flew over and devoured the 2 corpses. The energy contained in the 2 god crystals was not something that those low-level beastmen could compare to. Xiaohe, why didn't you make a move? You are wasting my cold energy. Yi Qinghan did not rest. He went to the front to collect the badges. As he ran, he said unhappily. Xiaohe grinned and said, Boss, let me help you warm up. I haven't fought for so many years. I'm afraid your body will rust. Yi Qinghan laughed. He did not use much cold energy in the battle just now. Dealing with 2 rank 9 martial artists was indeed a small warm-up for him. He ran to the front and collected all the badges on the ground. Yi Qinghan was in a good mood after getting tens of thousands of points in one go. There were a few blue badges, which meant that there were a few venerable-level martial artists. He had casually obtained more than 30,000 points. The 2 of them did not rest. They continued to run. What surprised them was they actually encountered another army within 2 hours. It was still a Beastman army. There are no rank 9 martial artists. Xiaohe go. Yi Qinghan checked and immediately ordered Xiaohe to make a move. Xiaohe whizzed past. In just a moment, thousands of points were in his hands again. 6 hours later, the 2 of them encountered a small army of thousands again. After Yi Qinghan checked, he was happy and worried at the same time. He said to Xiaohe, Xiaohe, we just happened to be teleported to the entrance of Devil Mountain in the Beastman dimension. There is another Beastman army in front of us. There are more than 5,000 people. There is also a lower rank 9 Beastman powerhouse. Xiaohe was overjoyed when he heard this. Boss, what are we waiting for? Let's just wander around here. If we kill all the large armies in this dimension, won't we get 1,000,000 points soon? Yi Qinghan waved his hand and said in a low voice, "Don't act rashly. There are only 3 small armies now, and there are actually 3 rank 9s. This dimension must be very powerful. Maybe there are several rank 9s. If they are alarmed and surrounded, it will be troublesome." That's true. Then what should we do? Don't tell me we don't want such a big piece of meat? Xiao He curled his lips, very unwilling to give up. Of course we won't let it go. Yi Qinghan grinned. His eyes were full of murderous intent. He pondered for a moment and said, "Let's first arrange a retreat route, and then go on a killing spree. If we are targeted by a rank 9s, we will kill him. If there are more, we will retreat immediately. Let's go." Okay. Xiao He was immediately excited when he heard that they were going to do something big. Yi Qinghan did not run forward. Instead, he retreated immediately. He followed the original route and made marks along the way. In a dead-end passage hundreds of thousands of miles away, he found a transmission restriction. After wandering around the vicinity and confirming the escape route, he followed the marks again and ran back the original route. Shall I do it? Kill. The small army of beastmen had not gone far yet. It did not take Yi Qinghan long to catch up with them. Since a great battle could break out at any moment, Yi Qinghan did not dare to expend any more cold power. He shouted at Xiao He, telling him to do it. Kill, kill, kill. Seeing that Yi Qinghan was ready, Xiao He immediately roared 3 times and rushed forward. Chapter 13:13. Sister, we're under attack. A loud roar shook the passageway. The 2-meter-tall beastman commander immediately grew to a height of 7 or 8 meters. A green light flashed on its body as it looked at the gust of wind Xiao He had condensed. However, it did not immediately charge forward. The thousands of beastmen also let out strange cries as black streams of qi revolved around their fists. However, the black streams of qi were clearly much fainter than the beastman commanders. They all lined up neatly behind the beastman commander. Sister, this is the monster that Niu San sent a message to before he died? Beastmen, all of you, get ready. Seeing the gust of wind that Xiao He was getting closer and closer, the beastman commander did not panic. Instead, a mocking smile appeared on its furry face as it waved its several-meter-long arms like a windmill. The beastmen behind it also waved their arms faster and faster. The black streams of qi on their fists became denser and denser. Sister, shoot! The beastman commander's huge leopard head bared its fangs as it let out a sharp roar. Its hand suddenly stopped as 2 balls of black qi, each larger than a basketball, shot forward like cannonballs. The beastman army behind it also stopped waving their arms as countless balls of black qi shot forward. Strangely, none of the balls of black qi collided with each other. Instead, they blocked the entire passageway in an orderly fashion. The 2 balls of black qi at the very front were the most powerful and fast. Wherever they passed, cracks would appear in space. This was the planar battlefield. The space here was as stable as the endless void. It could be said that the power of this energy was very powerful. What is this? Little Black was slightly startled. Although it felt a little uncomfortable, it didn't care. The shadow became transparent and pierced through the black air mass that filled the sky. Sister, shoot! Explode! The beastman commander roared. Suddenly, the thousands of balls of black qi exploded together. The terrifying destructive power immediately collided, giving off a blinding light and tearing open a long and narrow hole in space. The nearby space was enveloped by it, making it impossible to see anything clearly. Its power was actually comparable to a peak rank 9's all-out attack. Xiao He's painful screams were heard. Yi Qinghan was so scared that his soul almost flew out of his body. After Xiao He turned into a soul body, Yi Qinghan's soul almost left his body. As long as he didn't have a sense of danger in his heart, the enemy had never hurt him. In Yi Qinghan's opinion, as long as it was not a 9th-grade supreme martial artist, There was no possibility of anyone harming Xiaohei. Now, a team of low-level martial artists and a lower rank, 9, actually made him scream in pain? Xiaohei. Immediately, Yi Qinghan activated the power of cold with all his might. Like a wounded leopard, he roared and his body turned into a blur as he dashed forward. Killing intense surged from his body, and his aura was completely revealed. In an instant, the entire space in the passageway froze. "Boss, I'm fine. This group of bastards actually injured me. I'm going to tear them apart." Xiaohei's ghastly wind was blown into pieces, but it gathered again in an instant. It was actually the same ability as the Demon World's Paragon. Then, it turned into a furious blue dragon, releasing a heaven-piercing aura and surging forward. "Sister, what kind of guy are you? Retreat!" The Beastman leader's mocking smile turned livid the moment Yi Qinghan's aura was released. Seeing such a terrifying energy gathering, not only did he not die, but his aura became even stronger. He was so scared that he ran away immediately. "Sunna, what kind of guy is this? Run!" All the Beastmen were scared out of their wits. They screamed and retreated frantically, running away. Swoosh! How fast was Xiaohei's speed? How could this group of Beastmen compare? In the blink of an eye, he immediately caught up and engulfed everyone. Other than the Beastman leader, everyone's body was corroded and devoured at a speed visible to the naked eye. Immediately, screams and howls of grief rang out incessantly. The lower rank, 9 Beastman waved his 2 huge fists, protecting his entire body with the origin energy. He had wanted to give Xiaohei another blow. However, Xiaohei's airflow was like Yi Qinghan's golden soul threads, pervasive and quietly penetrating his body. It had already begun to corrode the Beastman's internal organs. The Beastman leader immediately rolled on the ground in pain. After a while, all the Beastmen in the cave had disappeared, except for the pool of blood. Xiaohei's body also slowly gathered. The expression on his face was a little dim. His eyes were also very listless. "Xiaohei, how are you? Is your body okay?" Yi Qinghan had flown over long ago. He did not even bother to collect the badges on the ground. He immediately asked Xiaohei anxiously, "It's nothing, boss." That explosion just now contained a terrifying destructive force. It actually caused a small part of my body's energy to explode. I'm afraid I won't be able to recover even if I devoured 10 lower rank, 9 powerhouses. I'll go back and cultivate for a while. I'll immediately convert the energy that I devoured. After Xiaohei finished speaking, he went back into the slaughter god saber on Yi Qinghan's back. Yi Qinghan used his divine sense to check Xiaohei's body. Only after confirming that there was nothing wrong with Xiaohei did he collect the badges. Just as he was about to sit cross-legged and use his divine sense to check Xiaohei's condition, his eyebrows suddenly twitched and the corner of his mouth curled into a cold arc. His eyes were like lightning as he suddenly shot toward the front of the passageway. Upper rank 9? This Beastman dimension is really powerful. Yi Qinghan was originally suppressing his anger. His divine sense detected an upper rank 9 Beastman running toward him at high speed. Behind him was an army of more than 10,000 Beastmen. Immediately, his murderous intent exploded. It was a good opportunity to vent his anger on this group of Beastmen. Yi Qinghan did not move. Instead, he retracted his murderous aura and only used his divine sense to scan the surroundings. He stood there and waited for his prey. Niu Shi-san is also dead? Where's the monster? Where did the monster come from? The upper rank 9 Beastman speed was much faster than the army behind him. He had long seen the dark red blood on the ground. His expression immediately turned sinister as he roared angrily. As he walked, his body expanded. In the end, he actually grew to more than 10 meters tall. This beastman's body was in the shape of a crocodile. His lower body was no different from a human's, but there was a tail that was 7 to 8 meters long growing out of his buttocks. As he walked with large strides, the wind whistled, and his aura was terrifying. Although the Beastman commander could sense that Yi Qinghan did not have a strong aura and did not have any divine power, he did not dare to be careless. Their commanders were all connected. The moment they died, the nearby commanders would immediately sense it. Their army had just entered the Devil Mountain, and 3 of their commanders had already died. One of their commanders sent a message, saying that they had encountered a monster. Yi Qinghan's identity as a human was very common in the plain battlefield. However, the Beastman commander still felt that something was amiss. Therefore, he would definitely attack with all his strength and kill Yi Qinghan first. 2 giant legs that were 7 to 8 meters long strode over. With every step, the ground shook. His long arms spun like windmills. His bronze bell-like eyes stared at Yi Qinghan, filled with coldness. 500 li, 300 li, 200 li. Yi Qinghan calculated the distance. Without waiting for the Beastman commander to wave the black mass of air in his hand, the power of frost surged. Without any fancy moves, he directly waved a giant palm, smashing down with an aura that could destroy heaven and earth. Boom! Such a distance, such speed. The Beastman commander did not even have time to scream. He was immediately smashed into meat paste by the domineering power of frost. The terrifying energy tore a long crack in the space. The surrounding mud fell, and the tunnel shook as if it was about to collapse. Yi Qinghan's body flashed, and he reached out to grab a black badge in midair. He sprinted forward. There were more than 10,000 points waiting for him ahead. However, Yi Qinghan had just sprinted forward for 1,000 li when he immediately retreated, running back the way he came. His mouth was full of surprise and bitterness. He spat out a mouthful of dust and cursed. What plane is this? Do 9th grade powerhouses not need money? Motherf asterisk Kerr. 2 9th grade supreme martial artists actually came. Chapter 13-14. Xiaohei's main body was injured and was currently recuperating. Only a few years had passed. It was not the time to risk his life yet. Therefore, when Yi Qinghan detected 2 9th grade supreme martial artists with auras rushing toward him, he did not hesitate and fled immediately. One-on-one. Yi Qinghan was not afraid of any 9th grade supreme martial artist. Only an idiot would fight 1 against 2 with you. With the power of cold operating at full force, Yi Qinghan's speed reached the limit, following the original route of retreat, fleeing wildly. His divine sense, however, was constantly locked onto the 2 9th grade half-beast supreme martial artists behind him. They were 2 bull-headed experts. He only felt relieved when he found that the 2 were slower than him. After running for several hours, Yi Qinghan had arrived near the dead passage with a transmission restriction. His divine sense detected that the 2 9th grade half-beast supreme martial artists were already more than 100,000 miles away from him. Moreover, the 2's gazes were not as violent and cruel as before, but a little dazed. Obviously, his divine sense could not detect him for a long time. Yi Qinghan's mind turned. Finally, he gritted his teeth and did not choose to enter the dead passage. Instead, he rushed toward another passage at the fork in the road. At this moment, Yi Qinghan could be sure that the entrance to the Demon Mountain of the half-beast plane was definitely nearby. Otherwise, he would not have encountered so many half-beast legions, and the 2 9th grade supreme martial artists would not have caught up so quickly. In the previous 3 years, Yi Qinghan and Xiaohei only obtained a few thousand points. But in just half a day, they killed 3 9th grade lower martial artists, more than 10 supremacies, and more than 10,000 low-level martial artists. With more than 50,000 points in hand, Yi Qinghan did not want to teleport away just like that. Anyone who did not pick up the points on the ground would be a fool. After running for another tens of thousands of miles, sure enough, the 2 9th grade supreme martial artists stopped in their tracks at the fork. Because they couldn't detect Yi Qinghan's figure, they couldn't find his aura. In the end, they randomly found a passage and ran away. Yi Qinghan did not dare to turn back immediately, nor did he dare to walk forward. Instead, he quietly ran towards the dead end. Xiaoqin retracted his cold power and ran with large strides. However, he used his divine sense to scan his surroundings carefully. For the Beastmen 9th grade supreme martial artists to arrive so quickly, they must have a special method of communication between each other. At this moment, The two ninth-grade supreme martial artists were not far away. Yi Qinghan did not want to encounter the Beastmen army again and be hunted down again. Walking into the dead passage, Yi Qinghan sat next to the teleportation restriction. Once again, he used his divine sense to explore the surroundings. Only then did he feel relieved. His divine senses entered the slaughter god saber and observed Xiaohe. Xiaohe had sunk into a half-asleep state. Yi Qinghan used his divine sense to probe, but he merely opened his eyes and closed them again. Xiaohe's spirit body did not seem to have any special changes. Xiaochen reckoned that he had already refined some energy as his spirit body had regained some luster. Yi Qinghan meditated on the spot, quietly waiting for Xiaohe to come out of seclusion. Of course, he also wanted to avoid the limelight. After all, if the Beastmen 9th grade supreme martial artists entered the dead passage, he would be able to teleport away at any time. Half-Moon Queen, Xiaohe, had woken up. Yi Qinghan immediately became energized. He looked at Xiaohe, who had just floated out of the slaughter god's saber, and asked, "Xiaohe, is there something wrong with your body? Why did this level of attack injure you? You've never been injured before." "Boss, do you really think that I am an unkillable demon sovereign?" Xiaohe smiled bitterly and sighed. "I don't know why, but my spirit body has a restraining effect on the living beings of the demon realm. No matter how strong the attacks of the demon realm are, I don't feel any danger. However, that black ball of energy explosion just now was able to destroy my spirit body, causing a large amount of my energy to be depleted. But because I didn't feel any life-threatening danger, I would have escaped long ago. Then what should we do? Should we change our location and not look for these beastmen to attack?" Yi Qinghan pondered for a moment and said regretfully. It was rare for them to come across a place where the army was concentrated. However, Xiaohe was more important. Xiaohe shook his head and said resolutely, "No. I want to get 100 times more energy from them. I was too careless last time. Next time, boss, let's attack together and not give them a chance to use their energy explosion." "All right then, do you want to refine for a while more?" Yi Qinghan asked with concern. "No need. After I evolve, my refining speed has increased by several times. I have already refined all of it." Xiaohe grinned and floated forward. He shouted, "Go! Boss, let's go take revenge." Yi Qinghan calculated the time. It had been half a month. He estimated that the two half-beast supremes had already gone far away. He nodded and strode after them. Outside an entrance of Devil Mountain, there was a large army stationed. There were figures everywhere on the mountain range. There were millions of martial artists all over the mountains and on the ground. These martial artists' bodies were human, but their heads were all different kinds of beasts. At the entrance of Devil Mountain, there were 7 to 8 large palaces. The extravagance was incomparably grand. For the Dimension War, there must be at least 1 million participants and at least 10 rank 9 martial artists. However, there was no clear upper limit. Some of the more powerful planes with many experts, would not be able to do so. In order to fight for first place, they would often send out more martial artists and powerhouses to kill more martial artists, seize the first place, and obtain the reward. However, this kind of plane was rare. Back in ancient times, the divine world had also done this and won first place countless times. Obviously, this half-beast plane was also walking the path of the divine world back then, fantasizing about winning first place consecutively, being bestowed with supreme spirit treasures, and conquering and ruling over more planes. "Hi, Your Majesty, the Great Sky Emperor, just now another team was killed. A commander-in-chief died." In the largest palace outside Devil Mountain, there were more than 8 half-beast powerhouses sitting. At this moment, a half-beast woman with a fox's head walked in hurriedly, knelt down in front of a snake-headed half-beast in the middle, and reported. Boom! The snake-headed half-beast was enraged. A thick and strong hand slammed heavily on the armrest beside the throne. The armrest instantly turned into powder. The remaining 7 half-beast powerhouses were also full of anger. The snake-type half-beast had a black flat head, 2 red eyes emitting a frightening glow. It opened its mouth wide, revealing the fangs and snake tongue inside. A sinister voice rang out in the palace. Bastard, in a year, Bull 1 and Bull 2 actually couldn't even kill a human martial artist? Too good for nothings. And this human actually killed tens of thousands of our people and a few of our commander-in-chiefs? Could it be that this human has extraordinary abilities? He can even burrow into the ground? Leopard 1, Leopard 2. Your Majesty, the Great Sky Emperor, Leopard 1 and Leopard 2 are here. The two leopard-headed half-beast men at the side immediately stood up and responded to the snake shooter. The snake-headed man's dazzling red eyes flickered. Through the door of the palace, he looked at the passageway inside Devil Mountain and said viciously, "The two of you are the fastest. Cooperate with Bull 1 and Bull 2, and you must definitely kill this human for me. Otherwise, you know what I can do." "Yes, Your Majesty, the Great Sky Emperor. We will definitely bring this human's head back to see you." The two leopard-headed men trembled. Obviously, they were extremely afraid of this snake-headed half-beast man. They immediately cupped their hands and flashed out of the palace, shooting toward Devil Mountain. Their speed was actually as fast as lightning, even faster than the two ninth-grade supreme martial artists that Yi Qinghan encountered. Chapter 13-15. Boss, it's about time, right? It's been more than half a month. We can go out and hunt. In the War Imperial Palace, Xiao He said to Yi Qinghan, who was reading a book leisurely. Yi Qinghan thought for a while and smiled. He put down the book, picked up the Slaughter God's saber, and put it behind his back. "Let's go." Xiao He entered the Slaughter God's saber, and Yi Qinghan appeared in a dead end in the War Imperial Palace. There were 3 teleportation restrictions in front of him. Yi Qinghan had been in the vicinity for an entire year. He went out to hunt countless times and was chased by the 2 ninth-grade beastmen. However, in the end, Yi Qinghan managed to shake them off. In just 1 year, Yi Qinghan's points were already close to 100,000. Furthermore, this was the result of Yi Qinghan not daring to kill wantonly. Otherwise, his points would have reached more than 100,000. Every time he went out for 10 days, Yi Qinghan would encounter a few armies. However, before he could kill all of them, the 2 beastmen would definitely chase after him. Yi Qinghan wanted to join forces with Xiao He several times to kill these 2 beastmen. However, considering that Xiao He was injured by the destructive power previously, Yi Qinghan did not dare to take the risk. Every time these 2 beastmen chased after him, he would immediately use his speed to escape far away and return to the War Imperial Palace to lie low. After scanning the surroundings with his divine senses, Yi Qinghan quietly walked out of the dead end and randomly walked into a fork. His divine senses extended to the limit as he searched for his target. As he ran, he set up some restrictions on the walls so that he would be able to find his way back later. This time, his luck was not good. After running for 3 days, he actually did not encounter a single Beastman army. Just when Yi Qinghan was feeling puzzled and thought that the Beastman dimension would not send more armies to kill enemies and obtain points, a Beastman army of more than 10,000 suddenly appeared in front of him. "This is strange." Yi Qinghan stopped in his tracks and frowned slightly. He was a bit hesitant. An army of more than 10,000 people was normal. What was unusual was that there was no level 9 expert leading the army. Most importantly, the marching formation of the army was actually the long snake formation. The originally wide passage was enough for 1,000 people to walk side by side. At this moment, they were walking in rows of 2 or 3, and the entire army was actually 10,000 meters long. Should I kill him or not? Yi Qinghan hesitated. There was no doubt that there was something strange about this army, but there was no level 9 powerhouse. With Xiao He's devouring speed, it would only take him a moment to kill all of them. There was no chance for them to escape. More than 10,000 points. "Xiao He, it's time to work." Yi Qinghan steeled his heart. Although it was a bit strange, he decided to take down this army of more than 10,000 and immediately flee far away. He would enter the transmission restriction and find martial artists from other planes to fight. "All right, boss. Follow me quickly." Xiao He floated out of the Slaughter God saber. He knew very well that Yi Qinghan would not let him attack unless he was absolutely sure of winning. Therefore, he did not ask anything and rushed forward quickly. Yi Qinghan immediately followed and ran wildly. Since he had decided to leave after this mission, there was nothing to worry about. Xiao He turned into a gust of wind, and his speed soared to the limit. In just a few blinks of an eye, he rushed to the front of the army. Under the horrified gazes of countless beastmen, he swept all the way down. The army of more than 10,000 people meandered for 10,000 meters. The moment the beastmen at the front screamed, the ones at the back immediately ran away. However, how fast was Xiao He's devouring speed? In an instant, he had devoured thousands of people and immediately chased after the thousands of people who were running away. By the time Yi Qinghan ran over and collected the merit badges on the ground, Xiao He had already caught up to the remaining beastmen and started slaughtering them. Yi Qinghan used both his hands and feet to run as fast as he could while collecting the merit badges. However, he forgot one thing. Although Xiao He's devouring speed was fast, when he did not use the power of cold, the speed at which he collected the merit badges was not fast, especially when the merit badges were not piled up together. Instead, they were scattered in 2s and 3s. It is indeed a trap. After Yi Qinghan finished collecting the thousands of merit badges, he was prepared to rush in Xiao He's direction. His divine sense detected that 2 minotaurs had appeared in the passage ahead. They were the 2 half-beastmen supremes. Xiao He, come back! Yi Qinghan couldn't care less about the badges scattered on the ground in front of him. He shouted at Little Black in the distance. Xiao He also sensed 2 familiar and powerful auras coming from the front and immediately flew in Yi Qinghan's direction. Circulating the power of cold, Yi Qinghan did not wait for Xiao He to catch up to him and immediately ran back. However, he did not use all his strength and waited for Xiao He to catch up. Xiao He's speed was very fast, but it was about the same as the 2 minotaurs. By the time Xiao He entered the Slaughter God Blade, the distance between Yi Qinghan and the minotaurs had already shortened to 10,000 miles. Despicable human, you can't escape. Prepare to die. At such a close distance, the 2 minotaurs' divine senses had already locked onto Yi Qinghan. A loud roar came from the back of the passage, causing Yi Qinghan's eardrums to hurt. As the 2 minotaurs strode forward, their hands danced like windmills. 4 balls of black air transformed into 4 cannonballs and shot towards Yi Qinghan. "Ha! You 2 stupid cows want to catch up to me?" Yi Qinghan was not afraid at all. These 2 minotaurs were slower than him and had easily shaken him off after chasing him a few times. He was very familiar with the methods of these 2 old friends of his. Casually condensing a God-Slayer's spear, Yi Qinghan controlled it to shoot backwards. Just as it was about to collide with the 4 balls of black air, Yi Qinghan immediately controlled the God-Slayer's spear to explode. Boom! The terrifying power of cold exploded, causing the passage to tremble and the space to distort slightly. The 4 balls of black air also joined the explosion. The terrifying shockwave immediately transformed into balls of air and shot towards the 2 sides of the passage. At this moment, Yi Qinghan was running forward. Using the momentum, his speed became even faster. However, the 2 minotaurs faced him head-on, and their speed immediately slowed down. As time went by, the distance between Yi Qinghan and the 2 minotaurs was pulled to tens of thousands of meters. Despicable, despicable. If you have the guts, fight me for 300 rounds. The minotaurs continued to shout from behind. However, Yi Qinghan only smiled and ignored them. He continued to run forward, intending to run back to the dead passage and immediately teleport away. Why did a small army appear in front of me? And it's this kind of long snake formation? After running for half a day, Yi Qinghan's body suddenly stopped and his eyes were filled with vigilance. The minotaurs behind him had already opened up a distance of more than 100,000 kilometers. In another hour, he would be able to shake them off, but an army just happened to appear in front of him. However, this was not the time to hesitate. Moreover, the minotaurs behind him would not be able to catch up for a while. Yi Qinghan's speed immediately skyrocketed. In a few blinks of an eye, he was already close to the army. "Xiao He, come out and devour with all your might." Yi Qinghan thought for a moment, then steeled his heart and decided to take these thousands of points. Anyway, the minotaurs behind him could not catch up for the time being. By the time they got closer, it would be over here. Moreover, he ran with all his might and took the shortest route. This place was only an hour away from the Dead Passage with the teleportation restriction. Yi Qinghan planned to leave and had no scruples. Swish! As Xiaohei devoured with all his might, blood floated up and white badges fell. Yi Qinghan's divine senses were locked on the two minotaurs behind him. His hands followed behind Xiaohei at the fastest speed, collecting badges along the way. As expected, by the time Xiaohei killed these thousands of people, Yi Qinghan had already collected these thousands of points. The distance between him and the minotaurs was now more than 10,000 kilometers. Yi Qinghan could easily shake them off. Hearing the angry roars behind him, Yi Qinghan laughed loudly. Xiaohei, retreat. I have collected about 100,000 points here. It's time to change locations. Ha! However, Xiaohei did not enter the Slaughter God Saber. Instead, he had a gloomy expression as he exclaimed, Boss, scout ahead. There are 2 more Beastman supremacies coming. Chapter 13:16. Yi Qinghan's divine sense had been locked onto the minotaurs at the back. He did not pay much attention to the front and only asked Xiaohei to scout ahead. Hearing Xiaohei's exclamation, Yi Qinghan's divine sense detected 2 leopard-headed men rushing towards him. His heart skipped a beat. The situation today was so strange. There was indeed an ambush. Wolves in front and tigers behind. After entering the Demon Mountain, this was the first time Yi Qinghan was in a dangerous situation. However, there was no fear on Yi Qinghan's face. Instead, his killing intent surged. He was already prepared to change his location. Now he no longer had any scruples. He laughed loudly and shouted, What's there to be afraid of? Kill them all. When enemies meet on a narrow path, the braver one wins. If he was facing a 9th-grade supreme martial artist, Yi Qinghan would not hesitate to use the butcher knife. Even if it was 2 9th-grade supreme martial artists, Yi Qinghan was not afraid. If not for the fact that he was worried that Xiaohei would get injured again, Yi Qinghan would have attacked long ago. There was no other way. He could only kill his way out. Xiaohei, enter the Slaughter God Saber. I told you to attack. Devour them immediately. The Fire God battle armor appeared, and Yi Qinghan's body turned into a series of afterimages. The God-slaying spear immediately condensed and shot forward. Ayo, human, how dare you kill the mighty half-beast people? Prepare to die. The 2 leopard-headed men were more than 10 meters tall. The black spots on their faces trembled as they roared. They looked extremely terrifying. Their sharp teeth shone with a dim light, making one's heart tremble. The 2 leopard-headed people did not wave their arms like the ox-headed people. Instead, they waved their hands, and black, lightning-like energy swords appeared from their bodies. They pulled each other and flew around in the air, forming a net of electric arcs. Their red eyes, which were the size of a human head, looked at Yi Qinghan as if they were looking at a dead man. Insignificant human die. Countless electric arcs and energy swords flashed with crackling sounds, and like 2 giant nets, they flew toward Yi Qinghan. At the same time, the 2 leopard-headed men waved their arms again, forming a black net of electricity. Streaks after streaks of light shrouded Yi Qinghan. In the blink of an eye, more than 10 electric nets were shot out, forming layers upon layers of attacks, completely blocking Yi Qinghan's path forward. Yi Qinghan didn't say a word. He flew along with the 10 silver spears. His eyes were as cold as ice, and his face was as cold as snow. His divine sense was locked in front of him, and he didn't care about the ox-headed supreme being that was chasing after him. 1,000 miles, 500 miles, 300 miles, go. In a split second, Yi Qinghan clearly calculated the distance between them. He suddenly shouted, and the 10 God-Slayer's spears sped up, flying towards the leopard man on the left. At the same time, Soul Destroyer activated and attacked the leopard man on the left. Boom! Booms! The God-Slayer's spears collided with the electric arcs. The power of cold was more powerful than any other power. Under the horrified gazes of the two leopard men, the first layer of electric arcs was easily destroyed. Not a single God-Slayer's spear exploded. The second layer of electric arcs was broken. The third layer was also broken. When they reached the fourth layer, two God-Slayer's spears exploded, and there were only 3 layers of electric arcs left. However, as Yi Qinghan followed the God-Slayer's spears, the distance between him and the leopard man was shortened to 100 miles. The leopard man on the left was so scared that his face turned green. The power of destruction was the strongest power in history, but it was easily destroyed by the God-Slayer's spears. Now that he was being attacked by Yi Qinghan's soul destroyer, he thought that he was doomed. He desperately waved his hands and condensed the power of destruction, trying to block Yi Qinghan's attack. The other leopard man was anxious. Yi Qinghan was advancing with the God-Slayer's spears, and his speed was as fast as lightning. Yi Qinghan easily dodged his attack, and it was too late for him to turn around and chase him. He could only condense the power of destruction again and prepare to help save Yi Qinghan. Myriad clones! Yi Qinghan roared, and his body split into two into 4. In the blink of an eye, he condensed hundreds of clones, but he stopped advancing and condensed the God-Slayer's spears again. Boom! The 8 God-Slayer's spears that were charging forward were finally destroyed by the combined attack of the 2 leopard men. The terrifying energy of the explosion caused the 2 leopard men to retreat several hundred meters. Just as the 2 leopard men caught their breaths, they saw hundreds of Yi Qinghan carrying thousands of God-Slayer's spears, and with the power of an army of thousands, they shot towards the 2 leopard men. The 2 leopard men were so scared that their souls almost left their bodies. This was especially so for the leopard-headed man who had just been attacked. His eyes were filled with terror. This was because almost all of the thousands of God-Slayer's spears shot towards him. Only a few dozen spears shot towards the other leopard-headed man. Yi Qinghan's intentions were very obvious. He concentrated all his strength to kill the leopard man on the left, and the other dozens of God-Slayer's spears were just to delay the other leopard man. Therefore, the leopard man on the left did not hesitate, and he sent out 2 electric arcs, turned around, and ran. Leopard 2, why are you running? Idiot, this must be an illusion. Hulk 1 and Hulk 2 are about to catch up. The other leopard man roared angrily. He muttered to himself and did not believe that Yi Qinghan had such a terrifying attack. If he had such strength, he could directly attack the Beastman's main camp and kill all the Beastman's martial artists. After shooting out several electric arcs, he suddenly felt that something was wrong. The billions of golden soul threads in his sea of consciousness started attacking his sea of consciousness, and this really scared him. He immediately circulated his soul power to get rid of the invading golden soul threads. At the same time, he circulated more than half of his primal chaos energy to protect his soul, and used his origin energy to protect his body. Xiaohei, devour him! This was the effect that Yi Qinghan wanted. He had originally planned to scare off the leopard man on the left. He wanted to kill the leopard man on the right. The 10 God-Slayer's spears easily broke through the electric arcs. Only 6 of them exploded, and the remaining 4 pierced the leopard man's body. One of the spears started spinning frantically, and almost half of his body exploded. The origin energy defense on the surface of his body immediately collapsed. Xiaohei took this opportunity to rush out, and several streams of air entered the leopard man's body and covered his divinity crystal. The leopard man's soul was already shaken, and after being attacked by Yi Qinghan, he panicked even more. How could he care about controlling the primal chaos energy on his divinity crystal? After Xiaohei's sneak attack, a crack appeared on his divinity crystal in the blink of an eye. By the time the leopard man reacted, it was already too late. Ah! Ah! A heart-wrenching roar resounded. The leopard man's divinity crystal was corroded, and he died immediately. His body turned into powder at a speed visible to the naked eye. The fleeing leopard man in front hesitated when he heard Leopard 1's roar, and now he ran even more frantically. As for the 2 ox heads behind, they could not detect the situation here. When they heard the scream, they increased their speed and chased over. Evil creature, where are you running to? Yi Ching Han grabbed a golden badge, and his eyes were filled with murderous intent. He was enraged from killing. In for a penny, in for a pound, in for a pound. He started to chase after the leopard man in front of him, ignoring the two ox heads behind him. Xiao He had just devoured a ninth-grade supreme martial artist, and he was extremely happy. Following behind Yi Ching Han, he shouted, "Kill, kill, kill." Chapter 13:17. The Leopard Man was a ninth-grade supreme martial artist, and a race that excelled in speed in the Beastmen dimension. His speed was very fast, almost on par with Yi Ching Han. However, Yi Ching Han had the soul extinguisher, and his golden soul threads were everywhere. Although the Leopard Man had used his chaotic force to protect his soul sea, the constant attacks from the golden soul threads inevitably distracted him. Once he was distracted, his running speed would definitely decrease. Originally, because Yi Ching Han had killed the other Leopard Man, the distance between him and the Leopard Man in front of him had increased to thousands of miles. After a few rounds of soul extinguisher, their speed was reduced to thousands of miles again. However, Xiao He was still hundreds of miles behind him. "Xiao He, don't come over first. Listen to my instructions." Yi Ching Han transmitted his voice. After releasing the soul extinguisher again, the God Slayer's spear whizzed out with a destructive aura towards the Leopard Man in front of him. "It's over, it's over. How can there be such a monstrous human, instantly killing a ninth-grade supreme martial artist? Even the great Heavenly Emperor doesn't have this ability, right? Could this be the son of the Divine Emperor? What should I do? What should I do? There's no other way. Fight, fight." The Leopard Man felt the God Slayer's spear getting closer and closer behind him. Countless thoughts flashed through his mind. Finally, he knew that he had no way to escape. His spotted leopard face twisted, and his triangular eyes were filled with madness. Under Yi Ching Han's surprised gaze, his 10-meter-tall body suddenly grew again. In an instant, he became nearly 100 meters tall. The brutal aura on his body immediately suppressed the terrifying aura of Yi Ching Han's cold force. "Is it scary to become so big?" Yi Ching Han smiled coldly. In this day and age, the bigger and more powerful one was. The mutated beasts that the Beast God and the others condensed with their spatial powers were just a few thousand meters tall. He could easily crush them with his Godslayer spear. Although Yi Ching Han was not afraid, he was still secretly on guard. He was ready to activate the Fire God's heart at any time, and his chaotic force began to protect the divine crystal. He also sent another message to Xiao He. "If you want to kill me, then die first." The Leopard Man roared. Then, the leopard head, which was several meters long, began to sway like a windmill. The power of destruction rapidly gathered above his head. At the same time, his body rapidly shrank. In the blink of an eye, the power of destruction within a radius of several meters had gathered above his head. By the time the God Slayer's spear pulled the distance between the two of them to 150 kilometers, the Leopard Man's body had already shrunk to a meter tall. However, the black ball of air above his head had a diameter of over 10 meters. Ultimate destruction go. Despicable humans die. Ha ha! The Leopard Man grinned sinisterly. He shouted loudly, and the black ball of air smashed towards the God Slayer's spear like a meteor. Its speed was even faster than the God Slayer's spear. Furthermore, the vibrations produced by the God-slaying spear were clearly more violent than the God-slaying spear. Not good. Yi Ching Han was shocked. Such terrifying energy. Furthermore, the Leopard Man's body did not have any energy undulations, and his body was also very soft. He deduced that this was definitely the Leopard Man's ultimate move. It was probably similar to the self-detonation of the divine crystal of the divine world martial artists. Even if he killed the enemy, he would be crippled. How much more powerful was the self-detonation of a grade 9 supreme martial artist? He immediately retreated and shouted, "Xiao He, enter the God Slayer saber immediately." Boom! Boom! The black ball of air clashed with the God Slayer spear. The terrifying energy destroyed the God Slayer spear one by one. However, The speed of the black ball of air did not decrease. Instead, it increased. When the 10 God-Slayer spear were destroyed, the speed of the black ball of air increased by 1-fold. Although the black ball of air had only shrunk by half, there was still a 5-meter wide ball of air that smashed towards Yi Qinghan and Xiaohe. Yi Qinghan had the fire god battle armor. If he was smashed by the black ball of air, his body would at most be smashed into pieces. However, with such a terrifying energy, Xiaohe would definitely be severely injured. He might even be killed. There is no time to teleport. In a split second, Yi Qinghan's soul spirit revolved at full speed and immediately calculated the result. Xiaohe could hide in the God-Slayer's saber when the black ball of air rushed towards him. However, if Yi Qinghan used the fire god heart to teleport, he would be delayed for 1 second. At that time, he would definitely not be able to teleport away in time. He would be fine, but would the God-Slayer saber be able to protect Xiaohe? Therefore, Yi Qinghan did not have any hesitation. The moment Xiaohe entered the God-Slayer saber, his body immediately disappeared from the spot and entered the world in his soul spirit space. Cold Realm. The Cold Realm was Yi Qinghan's greatest secret. In the planar battlefield, Yi Qinghan would never dare to reveal or use it. However, he had no other choice now. The moment he entered, Yi Qinghan immediately released his divine senses. He realized that the black ball of air was rushing towards the end of the tunnel. On the other side of the tunnel, 2 minotaurs were rushing towards him while shaking their heads. When they saw the black ball of air flying towards them, they were so scared that their faces immediately turned pale. All right, Xiaohe. Quickly devour that leopard-headed man. After dodging a calamity, Yi Qinghan's body immediately flashed and he summoned Xiaohe. Xiaohe immediately rushed out and devoured the leopard-headed man in front of him. In the end, the leopard-headed man could not resist at all and was turned into dust. Before he died, Xiaohe did not devour his god crystal. Instead, he sent a voice transmission to Jiang Yi. Boss, this chaos god crystal is useless. There is not much energy inside. There is no use for me to devour it. Huh. Yi Qinghan used his divine senses to scan the chaos god crystal. As expected, there was no energy inside it. The chaos god crystal was also completely exhausted. It seemed that the ball of air just now was similar to the self-destruction of a divine realm martial artist. He reached out and grabbed the chaos god crystal. Yi Qinghan planned to let someone refine it when he returned and see if it could increase his strength. If it could not, then it could only be a useless god crystal. Ha! Let's go, Xiaohe. Those 2 minotaurs are injured. Hurry up and pick up the dead fish. After that, we will leave this place immediately. Just as Xiaohe's hopes were dashed, and he was feeling a little unhappy, Yi Qinghan suddenly grabbed a golden badge and shouted in ecstasy. Xiaohe was instantly shocked. There was such a good thing? The man and the beast immediately started running. Just as Yi Qinghan entered and exited the Cold Realm, at the center of the planar battlefield, on top of that towering mountain that reached into the clouds, the wooden door of a wooden house suddenly opened without a sound. The mountain pierced into the clouds, standing at a 90-degree angle. It was made of black stone, and it looked like it was a single entity. From afar, it looked like a huge black pillar was inserted into the center of the dimensional battlefield. The top of the mountain was very wide, very flat, and as smooth as a mirror. Apart from 3 wooden houses, there was nothing else on it. At this moment, the door to the rightmost wooden house was opened. A cold and surprised voice sounded. Then a black-robed man walked out of the house. The man looked like a young man. He had bright eyes, thin lips, and a slightly curved nose. Although he looked like a handsome young man, his eyes were as deep as the sea, and he looked incomparably old. It was very contradictory. Most importantly, this black-robed young man had a murderous aura around him. It was a murderous aura that could make ordinary people tremble in fear. And the moment this black-robed young man appeared, the entire world seemed to be attracted to him. It was as if he was the only person in the world. It was extremely strange. The black-robed young man stood at the peak of the mountain, quietly looking at the undulating demon mountains in the distance. His sword-like eyebrows were slightly furrowed, and the murderous aura on his body became thicker. After a long while, he murmured softly, "Strange. Just now there was clearly someone who shook the heaven and earth barrier. At such a close distance, it is impossible for this sovereign to have sensed wrongly. Who has such great magical power? Who can break the heaven and earth barrier? Don't let this sovereign find out." Chapter 13:18. At this moment, a surprised voice came from the top of Pan Shan's mountain. Then, the door of the wooden house on the left opened, and a woman in purple slowly walked out. The woman in purple had a slender figure and a beautiful face. However, there was no emotion on her face. There was no spirit in her eyes, making her look pale. She walked out and looked at the black-robed youth in front of the wooden house. She asked calmly, "Pan Xing, the final battle hasn't started yet. Why did you come out so early? Did something happen?" Hearing the purple-clothed woman's words, the black-robed man did not turn around. He did not even move. His gaze was still like two blades as he scanned the endless demon mountains in the distance. After a while, he turned around and said doubtfully, "Just now, I sensed that someone broke through the spatial barrier of Plate Realm. How is that possible?" A hint of surprise appeared in the eyes of the woman in purple, causing her face to glow with vigor. Her originally dull face suddenly became an outstanding beauty, causing anyone who looked at her to fall head over heels for her. Her star-like eyes scanned the mountains in the distance. After a while, she shook her head and said, "There's nothing strange. Pan Xing, did you sense wrongly?" The black-robed youth snorted coldly. Instantly, a murderous aura filled the air. The space around him trembled slightly. Just his aura alone caused the space in the dimension battlefield to tremble. One must know that this was the dimension battlefield. If a low-level warrior saw this, wouldn't he be scared to death? The black-robed youth that the purple-clothed woman called Pan Xing coldly looked at the purple-clothed woman and said indifferently, "You doubt my judgment? How can I be wrong at such a close distance? Pan Xi, aren't you being too nosy?" The woman in purple shook her head and didn't say anything else. Instead, she looked at the inside of the mountain. Pan Xing also looked at the mountain. After a while, he frowned and walked into the wooden house on the right. The wooden door closed automatically. A genius that comprehended the unyielding path actually entered the dimension battlefield. Interesting. The beautiful eyes of the woman called Pan Xi suddenly lit up. This glimmer of light instantly made her whole body full of vitality. If she was a withering rose just now, she was now a blooming peony. At the same time, her body produced a special characteristic similar to Pan Xing. Everything in the world was attracted to her. At this moment, she seemed to be the sky. This person's strength is so strange. Suddenly, Pan Xi exclaimed in a low voice. Her two mountain-like eyebrows slightly frowned. After looking for a while, she showed a hesitant expression and murmured softly, "Is he the one Pan Xing said broke the space barrier of Pangaea? Should I tell Pan Xing?" "It's just that if I tell Pan Xing will definitely kill him immediately. This person is the first genius in tens of millions of years to comprehend the three great Taoists. Oh, it depends on your luck. If you're discovered by the Pan Xing judge, that's your fate." After a while, Pan Xi shook her head slightly and sighed deeply. She turned around and walked into the wooden house on the left. The door of the wooden house silently closed, and peace was restored on Pan Mountain. In the passageway of Demon Mountain, Yi Qinghan and Xiao He were like two ferocious tigers descending the mountain, rushing towards the two minotaurs at the other end of the passageway. The two minotaurs were more unlucky. They hurriedly chased after them, and just happened to discover that Yi Qinghan was being chased by the black mass of air. Looking at the power of that mass of air, it was definitely at the level of a 9th-grade supreme martial artist. They thought that Yi Qinghan had been intercepted by the two leopard men and were overjoyed. Without much consideration, they once again increased their speed and rushed forward. In the end, Yi Qinghan suddenly disappeared. The black mass of air became smaller, but its speed increased by one-fold. The two of them were frightened and hurriedly turned around and retreated. However, the two of them were slow to begin with. In the end, they were tragically caught up. Although the black mass of air had flown for such a long distance and its power had weakened again, the two of them were still injured. Just as the two of them were cursing silently, Yi Qinghan and Xiao He were running towards them from afar like two ferocious tigers. The two of them were high and mighty senior commanders in this dimension, ninth-grade supreme martial artists. If it was an hour ago, and Yi Qinghan and Xiao He had rushed over, the two of them would definitely be wild with joy. But now, the two leopard men senior commanders had been killed, and in such a short period of time. Most importantly, the two of them had even been injured. When two enemies meet on a narrow path, the braver one wins. When two armies fought, the most important thing was morale. If morale was high, the will to fight would be high. If their morale fell, they would only be able to display 200% of their strength. If their morale fell, it would be a miracle if they could display even half of their strength. Yi Qinghan was an expert in controlling morale. Just now, he had used his strategy and his strange attack method to scare the two leopard men, causing their morale to plummet. Right now, he was in midair. His body once again released the myriad clone skill. In an instant, the tunnel was filled with his silhouette and God Slayer's spear shadows. Run! Without any hesitation, the two bull-headed men immediately ran. They did not even care about recovering from their injuries. However, the bull-headed men's speed was originally slower than Yi Qinghan's. Now that they were injured, and Yi Qinghan was continuously attacking the most heavily injured bull-headed man with the soul-extinguishing technique. The result was unknown. The first bull-headed man did not have the time to attack before his death. He was severely injured by Yi Qinghan. Xiao He pounced on him ferociously and swallowed him instantly. The second bull-headed man heard the scream and knew that he could not escape. He also attacked before his death like the leopard man. Of course, Yi Qinghan was already prepared. He immediately used the fire god's heart and teleported away. After the attack weakened, he easily killed the bull-headed man. Xiao He retreat. He grabbed the dull chaos divine crystal and a golden badge from the bull-headed man's body. Yi Qinghan cursed in his heart. He did not know if this was considered a chaos divine crystal. There was no energy or chaotic energy in it. Xiao He did not even bother to swallow it. However, it was still better than self-destructing. He decided to go back and find someone to refine it. Maybe it would be useful. Wow, boss, we are rich. 4 ninth-grade supreme martial artists, 200,000 points in his hands. How many points do we have now? Xiao He was an optimistic person. He had already swallowed a chaos divine crystal. His soul spirit body had a huge amount of energy waiting for him to refine. Therefore, he was very satisfied. He happily flew into the slaughter god saber and sent a voice transmission. More than 300,000 points. Previously, we worked so hard and only managed to get a little more than 100,000 points. Now, we have 200,000 points. Killing ninth-grade supremes is so satisfying. Yi Qinghan laughed as he ran. Xiao He thought for a while and continued to send a voice transmission. Boss, do you think the ninth-grade supremes in the Beastmen dimension have been killed? Why don't we just stay here? Should we just stay here and wait? Let's just swallow all the legions in this dimension. We might even be able to gather 5 million points. Yi Qinghan paused and hesitated. It was already not bad for a dimension to have 4 ninth-grade supremes. Thinking back to the era of the Battle Emperor, there were only 3 ninth-grade supremes. If there were not many ninth-grade supremes in the Beastmen dimension, it would be very promising. Should we do it or not? After a while, Yi Qinghan stood at a fork in the road and hesitated. This fork in the road led to a dead end with a teleportation restriction. However, faced with such a huge temptation, he hesitated. Bastard. Leopard 1, Leopard 2, Bull 1, Bull 2. These 4 idiots were all killed. All of them. Who was it? Who killed them? At this moment, 6 figures rushed in from the entrance of the Demon Mountain. The one in front was a snake-headed beast man. His blood-red eyes were filled with murderous intent. He roared furiously, causing the 5 Beastmen Supremes behind him to tremble slightly. The other Beastmen nearby were also so scared that they prostrated on the ground. After the 6 commanders left, they stood up and looked at each other in confusion. Who was it? Or was it a powerful legion from another dimension? Why did the great heavenly emperor and so many commanders come out? You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.